the time. Like, I love this podcasting thing. Like, I can go home and talk about my book and then rest. Okay, cool.
And especially the whole idea of long form. You just go. You just do that. You just talk, and whatever comes out happens, and then you send. I do very little editing. I add a little intro and outro type of thing, but other than that, I just put it all out there, unless it's requests for specific stuff to be removed for privacy or whatnot. Now I'm chewing on my beard. I already had breakfast. Stop that. Okay, let me do 2 seconds of dead air, and I'll introduce us, and we'll get rolling. So. Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend Carrie Blazer from Ventura, California. She is a mother, a shaman, a master of East Asian studies, a trauma to enlightenment coach, and recently the published author of My Inner Heroine, Exploring Feminine Pain. You can find all this and more at carrieblazer.com. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. You see, I haven't had many new episodes lately because dreams come in their own time. And, when the time is right, you'll reach out to me and we'll do the thing. It's super easy. As I tell everybody, you can't do it wrong. All the pressure's on me, so don't be afraid to step up and reach out. Where does that leave me? I do video game streams Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific most days on YouTube and Rumble, and I'm also broadcasting to the X platform anyway. So you can check that out if you're so inclined. I didn't check earlier. This episode is brought to you in part by whatever book I have up on the screen over here right now. I cannot remember what it was supposed to be, and I forgot to check because I'm out of practice at doing this whole thing. So look over there and go to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com for all this and more downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast, so you can take the wizard with you wherever you wander, with or without Wi-Fi. Encyclopedia, episodes of where I've appeared on other people's podcasts under the media section, books, and more, all kinds of good stuff. So check that out. Also, if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, it is free to join, attached to my Rumble account. One of the best ways to reach out to me, just become a member and say hello, and we'll do a dream for you. That is more than enough out of me. Back to Carrie. Thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much for having me on to share my story and the wisdom I've gained, and I really appreciate it. And then we get to analyze my visions. I am super excited. On my birthday. Today's my birthday.
Oh, so. Yeah, happy birthday to you. Of course, that's happy accidents, they say. Or at least you had the opportunity to make this happen. That isn't always possible.
It's a gift to myself. I'm like, oh, he's going to analyze my dreams and visions. Okay, that's like gift to myself.
I think that's the neatest thing here, too, is that I get to offer an experience to someone personally that they wouldn't otherwise get the chance to do. It's not just me. It's just I don't think there's anyone else doing what I do. I am, if I may be slightly less humble than usual, I'm criminally under known. But maybe I'm not. So speaking of like the universe and stars aligning when they do, I'm of the opinion that exactly as many people know about me as should right now. That there is a next level that I will eventually achieve, but that maybe I'm not ready yet. But I'm heading in that direction. I'm working towards it, and when the time is right, I think it'll happen. And if it never does, then I never achieved the level that I needed to be worthy of that connection, to larger connection to more people. So either way, it's one of those things too with me. I bring out a guest and I talk. Isn't that wonderful? Just look at a pretty face and listen to me.
That's what I love. Just like, let's trust the process. Like,
yes.
like I'm just out there too. Like, I asked myself so many times in my book, I've helped several prominent men, including Justin Waller and Andrew Tate. And I had to ask myself, why did the universe choose me? And I have gotten so many important answers to that question. And so I'll just go into a few now. So my book shares the story mostly of how on my, it starts on my 45th birthday, which is exactly 10 years ago today. And my mom passed away on my 45th birthday. We were really close. And our birthday and our death day, our souls choose those days very carefully because they're like the most important days of our lives. So my mom and I have my birthday, and then we also have her death day together, showing how important I am to
Yeah.
her soul. And so that's the day my intuition told me, accept your psychic
Excuse
gifts
me.
and start healing from your childhood trauma. Well, I had never learned to surf the waves of life, so to speak, where you have emotional pain, you deal with it, then you go to your next mountaintop and then,
Mm-hmm.
slowly get more and bigger waves. Well, that was my call to heal. That was my soul telling me, okay, Carrie, it's time to learn to surf the emotional waves of life that you never had. Like I used to get 4 to 7 migraines per week. I was on trazodone, Klonopin, Soma, Ambien. Like, you know, I was, I didn't know what to do. So so I started learning, and that was a slower process because learning to go into the valley of darkness, the emotional pain, and then learning to come out of it and then have to go back in. It's like, didn't I already do that? Like, didn't I already, And
Yeah.
I'm like, and then okay, wait, I'm at a deeper layer. I had to learn that, healing is in layers. Like we're like onions and we peel the layers. So you might get emotional pain like fear of men at one level, and then you go to another level and you got to deal with it at another level and then another level. And it's, seems redundant and repetitive, but it's absolutely necessary.
Oh yeah.
So in 2019, my youngest daughter had an eating disorder and she was hospitalized. And while there, they taught her that eating disorders are a maternal wound.
Hmm.
Basically taught her to blame me. And I'm not saying that she didn't experience generational trauma. She 100% did. Like, I had a traumatic childhood. Her dad had a very traumatic childhood. Neither of us were healed. So it was, not a, balanced, healthy family. My children did not develop a secure attachment to self. They have
Hmm.
an avoidant attachment style or an anxious attachment style, like their dad, like me. So anyway, I went home after I put up an argument, like, I don't exist in a vacuum. Like, this is a family dynamic, and they didn't want to hear it. Um, my brain told me that I'd be better off, my kids would be better off with a dead mother than a live one.
Hmm.
Oh, and I had just refilled all my medications. I took like 120 trazodone, like, no, not 120, like trazodone, maybe 60 or 80, like about 120 Klonopin. I don't know how I lived. Like, Ambien, Soma was in there, and I was just done. I went upstairs, I laid down, and I fell right asleep. Like, I just let go. I was just done, and I was in my late 40s. And so
Hmm.
next morning, my older daughter, she was 18 at the time, came to get me to visit my younger daughter, who was 16 at the time. My son was 20. And then she saved my life.
Wow.
So that's the beginning of my book. And then the rest of my book gets into, once I was ready, I started attracting men into my life to show me my wounds. And two of those men were Justin Waller and Andrew Tate.
Wow.
And so that, I didn't see coming, but was, fascinating nonetheless.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Tate, of course. I mean, he's the I would say of the two, the more famous. But Waller, I think I've heard the name. I don't remember who he is exactly.
He's
Um,
just, I mean, he's Andrew's best friend.
oh, okay, gotcha,
He
gotcha.
has red hair, like 6'3". He has his own steel construction company. I mean, very traumatic childhood, very accomplished man, just like the rest of these men, just like me. Very traumatic childhood, very accomplished adult. And it actually, Winston Churchill had a quote that helped me understand. It's like, and I have it in the book of my final thoughts. And, he said that it is often said that famous men are often the product of unhappy childhoods.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to be said for that. There's a wealth of wisdom in stuff like the even tropes, the trope of the tortured artist. It's like, well, why do so many artists, creators, people who accomplish seem to have rough or difficult childhoods or terrible experiences in their past? And it's partly, I think, because that's in a lot of ways required for most people to get them to a place where they can do something great. Now, a lot of people take the other path by choice or through ignorance or lack of motivation, whatever, and they deteriorate, degenerate, fall apart, get into addictions and other bad behaviors, destructive, self-destructive, and destructive towards the world around them. And then the opposite of that. But it's funny how a lot of that comes from the same types of trauma experiences. It's just our different responses to it. And I mean, if people were to stop watching, 10 minutes in. The one takeaway I would want them to have is, it's you get to choose how you respond to these things and how you integrate those experiences and what you use the pain for. Is really a big deal. It's like I've said this for years, but that pain, fear, and anxiety are not your enemies; they're your friends. Now they are unpleasant to experience. Hey, speaking of which, she said that is unpleasant. I'm not having it. But it's beneficial because they serve as useful warnings. I mean, if you are in pain, if something's physically wrong with your body, if you're in emotional pain, if you're having, if you're afraid, you want to pay attention to that fear, because maybe your life's in danger. Maybe someone is trying to hurt you, and you should do something about that. Same with anxiety. You've got unresolved problems, things you're not confronting head on and making a plan to conquer. And it hopefully, if used properly, these things serve as motivators to get us out of bad situations, so that you don't have to experience the pain, the fear, the anxiety anymore, because you fixed it, you solved it. And then you get into what's a mental disorder. The idea that, well, there's no direct threat in the environment, you are in no danger, and yet you have fear out of proportion. Okay, we call that paranoia. Like, yeah, maybe you're being a little paranoid now, but then that gets complicated too, because people say, oh, you're just being paranoid, but they're gaslighty motherfuckers, and they're taking advantage of you, and they don't want you to trust your gut. And so you got to be careful with that. It's always good if you don't have a therapist, at least have a friend, someone you can talk to and say, what do you think about this? And anyway, I've talked long enough too. You said you helped Tate earlier, like you've been in contact with him, and he tapped you as a resource for some understanding.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to touch on I'll get to that question in a second. If that's
sure.
Okay.
Please start wherever you want.
An important question. If I want to back up.
Oh yeah.
So I started attracting all these men into my life, and I'm like, well, why is this happening? And why do they all have so many women? And it's supposed to be one man, multiple women. Like, I've never had that. Like, what is going on? So I looked in so many places. And I try to understand why there's so many hills and valleys in my life. Why do I have so much emotional pain? Why do I have so many failed relationships? Like, why? So one of the disciplines I lean on are physicists. Physicists have proven that we all have energy bodies or souls. And all of our souls are constantly communicating through our heart space. Like Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about this in his books. He's the famous neuroscientist, right? So our souls plan our lives based on the laws of physics. So in my book, I have in the beginning, it's called My Perspective, where I kind of go over the science behind my perspective of healing trauma and why I call myself a trauma to enlightenment coach, and how trauma and enlightenment are how trauma is a necessary prerequisite to experience enlightenment. So here's the experiment. There's two identical balls and two tracks that are the same distance. They're equidistant. One is slightly downhill and one has hills and valleys. So the distance traveled on that track is technically longer, but the same distance. Which one reaches the finish line first?
I have actually seen this experiment. I'm aware of it. Counterintuitively, the longer space, and it's because of the acceleration into the valleys. Sorry to steal your thunder on that one. I just had to prove I know some things too.
I'm a nerd. I'm a total nerd. Like, I translate 12th century Taoist texts from classical Chinese to English for my master's degree. Nice. Like, I'm a nerd. All in my family are all engineers. Okay.
Some of the books I published, I had to translate Greek and Latin. Yeah, that was good times. Good times. Yeah.
I love the nerd. Okay. So anyway, I remind myself of that all of the time. Like, if you want to get to the top of Mount Everest, which is what I call enlightenment, how deep into a valley of darkness and preparation to unearth more self-belief out of your shadow, more self-confidence, get your body strong and your gut strong and your lungs strong. Like, you got to go through it, right? If you want to get up onto the, Mount Everest and see from that viewpoint, do the work. But what I see is, and I rely on a lot of Carl Jung, right? So the first experienced enlightenment, I'll tell that story in a second. Like, I didn't understand, and I had to explain to my kids, and this is the quote that helped me the most. One does not become enlightened by imagining beings of light, which is kind of the slightly downhill track. The everyone's equal, everybody has food, all of that. Like life is easy, right? But by making the darkness conscious. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the healthy balance. You go into the darkness, you get more propulsion, more momentum, and that propels you to the next mountaintop. And we can't get along on the laws of physics. It's the laws of the universe. Like our souls, there's something called soul logic. That's what I call it. Like there's a way of things. There's healthy masculinity and there's healthy femininity. There is a way of things. We can't just decide to be a man and be a woman. And that's not progress. And what a lot of people think progress is having an idea and seeing if it works. That's not progress. Progress is opening your heart, downloading universal wisdom, like the universe is a mirror, or like the two ball experiment, which is like universal knowledge. It's kind of like the how we didn't invent the table of what is it, all the chemicals. We didn't invent it. We observed it, in
Discovered
nature.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually have a theory that humans don't invent anything, that invention is
No.
an act of creation and we can't actually create. We are creations who exist in a creation. All we can do is discover what's already present, and that includes new ideas. That those ideas
Yeah.
are waiting for us to discover them, but we're not ready for them yet, or haven't figured out how to get a look at them from the right angle. And I just want to say this before I completely forget. We're gonna throw it back to you. You just, like, I love aphorisms, little witty phrases. You just made me think of this. Wisdom does not start with a W. It starts
Mm.
with a Y.
Mm.
Y, W-H-Y. Anyway, I love that little phrase. It works
Like,
better in writing than if you speak it,
oh,
but
but it
it's
does.
funny.
Need like things like that two every time I'm like, why is it so like fucking two ball experiment? Get me every time. Like, it's so I get frustrated, but then I need some psychology, some radical acceptance. This is how reality is created, and our souls plan our lives based on our wounds.
Mm,
Like you hear so many women, why aren't there any good men out there? Okay, girlfriend, you know why you don't see any good men? Because you're not a good woman. And the universe is a mirror. So, and we have all the mirror neurons in our head, and that's how we learn because the universe is a mirror. That's how we see ourselves. That's how we improve ourselves. So that's why I attracted these men into my life. And so I'll get back to Justin and Andrew. So
hmm
the first one, chess champion, multimillionaire, met him at yoga. And it was just like the first night at yoga, we talked and he talked to me and I lit up and I didn't know why, but then I immediately shut down because these
mm.
men have multiple women and I wasn't ready yet. I had to do a few more medicine journeys the next year. And then a year later, I finally talked to him. And during our first conversation, my lower back pain that started when I was 15 years old, and that's important, and my sensitive scalp went away during our first conversation. And I always thought, was it my dad trauma? Like I didn't understand who it was, but I'm like, okay, well, I'm believing in myself, I'm loving myself, I drew healthy boundaries. It made him super attracted to me. He wanted more, he had more interest in me. Okay, maybe I'm onto something. So that was the first guy. But then he kind of introduced me to the whole one man, multiple women. And I never went on a date with any of these guys, even my guy from high school that they all led me back to. I was like, what in the world? You have this woman and that, what, and you want me to be one of what? And huh? You know, it was a whole new world to me. So I had a lot of questions about male sexuality and that I didn't understand. And so in June of 2022, my intuition guided. I said, seeing Justin on two of YouTube videos from Fresh and Fit, which is kind of the red hot center on YouTube of all players of Red Pill.
Mm.
And I've called myself Red Pill Shaman, like that's in the book. Um, and they specifically say we don't do spirituality. I'm like, okay, well that's why I win, and I'll tell you why I win in a second. So because you're just like denying reality, how reality is created, and you're all over here thinking you're all okay. Well, we'll see. I'm a mother. I got something to protect more than you do because none of you guys have kids. Or if you do have kids, it's multiple women and multiple kids. That's not a nuclear family. That's just, oh, I got someone pregnant. That's
hmm
not it's not like I got married to my ex-husband, married 10 years, had kids. Like, you want to come for a mother? So this is basically red pill shaman coming to red pill over monogamy and how they treat women because I'm done with it.
Yeah,
So,
there's a big difference between successful procreation on the genetic and species level and actually forming a family, and then maybe giving that family the best chance to, succeed in the world and children as well. I don't think polygamy, I think is the word,
Yeah.
is as what am I trying to say? It's absolutely not for everybody, and it's almost. I don't know. You get into some of those situations too, where it's like you look at, say, Elon Musk, and he is certainly able to provide for all of his children, but that's not. It's not just financial; it's also involvement. You have too many kids, living in too many separate places with too many different mothers, and now you're spread too thin. You can't really provide to them the full value of what you might have to offer. So it's suboptimal. I look at a lot of situations like, I'm not talking about good or bad. I'm talking about what works better than others. And sometimes what works better is the good moral choice in that sense sometimes. Anyway, tangent on that one. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I ask, okay, what creates a secure attachment to self? And, one of the questions I have for these guys is, well, okay, so let's talk. We all know, and there's tons of scientific data showing that that a healthy nuclear family is the bedrock of a stable society. We know that when you love someone and you sleep next to them at night, your nervous systems regulate each other and you have a lot less illness. Okay, there's so many scientific studies pointing that monogamy is healthier than polygamy. And so then also, if you want to ask it from a a laws of physics perspective, the woman's the center, and the man orbits with providing and provisioning. How can one man, based on laws of physics, successfully orbit around multiple centers? Can the Earth rotate around multiple suns? No, it can't, which shows you it's out of alignment. So I'm going to share a story. I'll share it in a minute. So let me get back to Justin and Andrew.
Well, that also reminds me of the a recent Netflix show called The Three Body Problem, which was based on a book, which is based on a mathematical astrophysics quandary, which is we could tell how two stars rotate around each other, but if you have three stars, it's impossible to calculate. They call it the three body problem because you don't know which one's influencing which and where to assign the pole. Yeah. So it's just like once you go beyond the pairing of one man, one woman, it introduces unnecessary, and that's why we get a lot of people. Okay, this is more than I was going to say. Then I interrupted, but we get a lot of people who say, "Well, there's nothing wrong with polyamory. I have so much love to give, and I spend all my time with these different people." I'm like, yeah, but you can't. It's almost impossible to get to know one person over a lifetime.
Yeah,
trying to get to know two people is double impossible. So your only chance of success is really narrowing it down, focusing in on one person, and doing everything you as Jordan Peterson would say, everything you bloody well can to really be that support. And to have just one person who is in your corner 110% and you're in theirs, they've always got your back, the person who's not going to betray you. Now, this is ideal. Marriages go bad. People are shitty. It happens, but this is what we're aiming towards. And so number one, you might not always achieve it if you aim at it, but if you don't aim at it, you're never going to achieve it. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Okay, I'm gonna stop there. Go ahead.
But totally. No, I mean, that is true. And they're denying the dual nature of reality, and they don't value women's ability to create life, and that femininity fuels masculinity. And so we can get into all those arguments. I'll get into in a second how they get into that. But basically, one day when I downloaded Monogamy is the Path to Enlightenment, that was the same day Fresh and Fit was demonetized on YouTube.
Oh, wow.
So that's the spiritual.
A bunch of little stars aligning type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll get into why that happened and how that's why you got to open your heart and download wisdom. I don't decide what wisdom is. I download it and then figure out how to align with it. I didn't decide the universe is a mirror. It is a mirror. I didn't decide.
Just observe it.
This is radical. This is reality. Okay, let me align with that. Okay, that's reality. Okay, 1 + 1 = 2 because 1 + 1 will never equal 3 like trans kids. If that's not Armageddon, that we're cutting off kids' genitals, I don't know what is. Like,
that's pretty crazy.
My gosh.
Yeah, I'm very much of the opinion puberty is a human right. We don't mess with that. And we don't cut off healthy body parts at all, ever. Anyway, long story short.
Okay, so I reached out to Justin in June of 2022. He got right back to me with a voicemail. He was racing Lamborghinis in France, but that's our souls have a plan, right? My soul and his soul planned for this to happen. Like Andrew Tate and his soul and my soul had a plan for us to interact the way we do, you know? And so I think that's one thing that the main lesson people can take away is our souls have a plan, and they make that plan based on the laws of physics and based on the wounds buried in our subconscious, so we can unearth those wounds and turn them into wisdom and become a better version of ourselves. That's why we have challenges in life. We're not going to change if things don't hurt. Oh, things are comfortable. Cool. I'll just another
Yeah,
margarita.
nobody does. Nobody changes
Even
anything until it stops
Corona,
working. Yep.
I change, right? So that was June. And then it took me about 2 months of interact with Justin a little bit over DM, not much,
Right?
to open his heart to me. So when Andrew got canceled in August of 2022, 2 weeks after that, I reached out to Justin and said that, John Gray, believes in him, that men need to act like men to be, to be healthy. Now, granted, Justin and Andrew help a lot of people in a lot of ways. I just don't agree with the polyamory. Like, I don't agree with that, with the poly lifestyle, but they helped a lot of people, and I support that. So anyway, then he got right. Oh, thank you, Kara. I really appreciate it, because he needs that emotional support. And I attract based on my anxious attachment style, which I think I'm healed from it now. But traditionally, I've had an anxious attachment style, and I'm sexually repressed. Okay, what's the opposite of that? An avoidant attachment style that's sexually overexpressed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm suppressed, which means my energetic opposite is overexpression.
Mm.
And so if you kind of analyze relationships based on the laws of physics, it really helps us understand and accept, I have wounds equal to those guys' wounds. It doesn't make them more messed up than me. We're equally messed up, just in different ways.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so common for women to say, well, he's messed up and I'm not that bad. And and I had an
Yeah.
example in my book where the first guy had a special relationship with a yoga instructor who's also a dominatrix.
Ah.
So we were flirting before class one day. So she starts stomping around his mat to reclaim him, and he lays down to like protect himself from the invisible whip. And I mean, like, I'm not that messed up. And I went home like, oh man, he's the counterbalance to me. I'm exactly that messed up. You had to, like, yeah, universe is here, motherfuckers. Let's go, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I had to own some shit. Okay. So then it gets me to why Andrew Tate in my life. So from the time I was young, like, I rejected myself, and I saw this one statue, a picture of it. It was grief, and it shows the head and then the arms, but the whole center, like the whole body, is just empty. You just see right through the person, the skyline and the ocean, and then you see the legs. And I had rejected so much of myself from my childhood trauma and internalized the way my parents thought of themselves, their projected self-hate. And I internalized it, like, I'm the problem and I'm wrong, and I just got to make everybody else happy. And I just, upset everybody, and I trigger everybody, and I'm just bad. I'm just bad, And so from the time I'm in kindergarten, I had a hard time making friends. And so I've been alone most of my life.
Mm.
So when in August of 2022, when Justin got back to me and then we started DMing more, he opened his heart to me. And that's the woman's work, right? Like, women are the emotional center. So, the secure attachment to self, that's women's work.
I'm glad you brought that back around too, because I was going to make a comment on that. Is like, so there's a political fight going on, culture war, as they say. And one of those cultural aspects is, what is the appropriate social roles of men and women? And there's one side that says we are tabula rasa. We're the same. We can each do anything the other can do, and we're interchangeable cogs. And there's the other side that says that's obvious horseshit, because we're very different, and you can just observe it. But so I lean very heavily into we seem to be built differently, not the least of which is men plant the seed, women carry the seed. And that is something men cannot do, nor can women do it without men's contribution. It's like we each have a different role to play in the reproductive process. Even if we're both having sex, the result is different for each one of us. And so from time immemorial, you get that thing where women, because of am I still recording? My camera's still on. I don't know. I heard a deedaloot. Everything seems fine. Fuck it. where because of women's unique role, they stay closer to the hearth and they're surrounded by other women and children in your tribal style, and men go out to battle the world. And that hasn't really changed in the modern age, except that the opportunity to experiment with a different model has been presented, and we're doing that. And in my estimation, it doesn't seem to be working out so good. But and I think just physically, the way we're constituted, men being larger, stronger. I'll phrase it that if you want to put it in a even quasi-feminist, I don't think small f whatever type of way, is that men are designed to be beasts of burden that serve women. In a way, and now not to denigrate men, but in the idea of they do the dirty work, the hard work, the heavy lifting, and since women can't do it physically, so we got that laws of physics thing going on there, and it's no shame. It's no shame to women that they're different. Say again.
We can give birth, but this is my whole book, Feminine Pain, is they want me to be in my that the society and my childhood trauma pushed me into my masculine, like, why does a woman like me, I'm 5'5", beautiful figure, smart, kind, open, fun, can speak, can dance. Why do I need a college degree? I should have had men lining, which, okay, you could see the men in my life that I attracted, and I attracted them based on my heart space, not because I'm having sex. No sex. That's why I could attract them, right?
Yeah.
I'm they're opposite. And also the thing, women got to imagine, like, okay, so all these men, they're all over 6 feet tall. Like the fire captain's 6'7", the other fire engineer is 6'4". Like they're all like, my guy from high school was league championing in wrestling. Like I have no chance physically against these guys. Where do I have a fighting chance?
Yeah, not physically. That's why I was breaking it down too. Is like this complementation of opposites. One thing I like to say to, in my head, I've thought of this before, and I think I probably put it on Twitter. Was that an announcement or a notification for you? Oh, that's fine. That was saying to women, hey, ladies, you 3D print new humans. Can we have something to be proud of too? Can we be the ones that bring home the bacon? Can we work this out? Because if you've got, and that's why because men are better suited to being beasts of burden. It's the most effective, efficient, best possible arrangement that men go out and do that job. Well, what do men need in return? They need literally a soft breast to lay their head upon, to be a respite from the world. They don't want to come home and do battle with an adversary who's competing for dominance in the home. And I know women think a lot of them are very resentful of that idea of you think we should be ruled by men? Not ruled. Ruled is the wrong way. Led. Leadership is not domination. It's
guidance. It's orchestration.
Yeah. And what it means is, just because you're the king doesn't mean you don't have advisors. And it doesn't mean you don't do what they say. Actually, most of the time, you're probably going to do what they say because they're pretty damn smart. And if you married a woman, it's probably because you respect her and her opinion and you want her to be happy. So even if sometimes the king might say, I'm going to do something else. But like 98% of what you want is not enough. I can't make 2% of the decisions where it's just me saying, no, I want to put my foot down on this one. I think there's a tremendous amount of resentment out there. And maybe it comes from, men being, there's a lot of, let's say, hardcore misogynists online. And they will say, the problem with women is men. It's men's fault. We let them get away with it. We could put our foot down and we don't. And I tend to agree with them. It's like, yeah, this is all men's fault.
There's problems on both sides.
It's true. It's true.
Exactly my book. Okay, exactly my book is all of this problem.
Yeah, let's get into your book and talk more about that.
Yeah, okay. So I'll go back to Justin and Andrew. So this is like chapter. This is like, I call them all my heroes, and Justin and Andrew are heroes 2 and 3.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up too. I had a comment on that. I'll get back to it.
Yeah, and so I had to call them my heroes because they mirrored my wounds back to me. Was I mad at them? Was I pissed off at them? Oh, many times. And all of them, pissed off, yelled, screamed at home, whatever. But when I settled down and processed my emotional pain, I have to be grateful because they showed me myself. And Andrew showed me so many parts of myself that I needed to have the courage and bravery to write the book and believe that like I can bring this to a film adaptation with a global media company the size of which could handle an Andrew Tate. Okay, to not say who it is, but in a way say who it is, and that I can get traditionally published. I mean, I'm just self-published right now. So to go from self-published to traditionally published is like 1 to 2% of self-published books get that privilege.
Mm-hmm.
And to have a film adaptation out of a self-published book is less than 1 in 1 million.
Oh
So
yeah.
I'm extremely fortunate to be in this, but why is that? Because my soul did the work up front to download so much wisdom so that I am that influential, so that when my book comes out, people's hearts are open to it because people are just, dying for healing. So, and this is, Justin and Andrew. So when I landed in Justin's heart that night, I could see that he had imbalances in his heart. I'm like, oh, he needs some work here and here. Okay, okay, I'll go to sleep. But that's women's work, and I can't physically fight these men and say monogamy, bitches. Like I can't. The
No.
only the fight that I have in me is to help connect them to their soul so they download more wisdom and then they come to that conclusion on their own. And one Cherokee proverb I've leaned on, like the 3 pieces of wisdom I lean on, are the 2 ball experiment, the universe is a mirror. I said 4, and
Mm.
then the the Cherokee proverb I'll say in a second, and then triggers are our healing friend and not our healing foe. When the
Mm.
pain's at
Mm-hmm.
the surface, we can process it. So, but with okay, oh yeah, the Cherokee proverb. This is what it says. A woman's highest calling is to connect a man to his soul so he can unite with source energy. A man's highest calling is to protect a woman so she can walk the earth unharmed. And this sets us up for success, physiological, emotional, hormonal success. Like, why are so many hormone problems right now? One reason is when women act like men, we create too much testosterone. When men act like women, too much in their emotions, they create the feminine hormones. And then that's one reason we're so hormonally out of balance, negatively impacting our ability to procreate. And we're 20 years from population collapse.
Oh yeah.
If sexual
Yeah.
promiscuity brought about more kids, we'd be having it, but it doesn't. And feminism and sexual promiscuity, go hand in hand. So
Yeah, there's a kind of I don't know if you'd call it epigenetic. It's not exactly. It's not. It's the right ballpark, wrong concept, but something like that. But they have shown that daughters who grow up without a father tend to have an earlier onset of puberty and a higher testosterone level and a more
yeah.
and then psychological responses to be more hypersexual to attract the man into their life that's been missing, and that you find that less often when they've had a stable father in the home. So yet more research that proves monogamy better than polygamy. You don't want to do that. But speaking of that, and I wanted to make this point too. It's like you said about your heroes, and heroism, the hero's journey, is something that scales from the micro level to the macro level. It's universally true at all levels, which is one way what truth is. Is like, is it true here and there all at the same time? Yes. Long story short on that one. So you can have a legitimately terrible person who's done horrible things, and in one moment of interaction with them, they can perform a heroic deed that benefits you, and they could be your hero from that moment, no matter what else they've done. So I look at that with the let's say Andrew Tate situation. It's like a quote that I put out there that I think I formulated, but who knows if I stole it. I can never remember. They got Swiss cheese for brains. Only children demand perfection from their heroes, and that's, I mean to say, when we're children, we look at Superman. We look at he's truth, justice in the American way. He's a Boy Scout. He's always trying to do the moral and right thing, and he's physically invulnerable. All just literal human perfection. Although he's an alien, but set that aside. It's funny how people on Krypton look exactly like humans. Very, very strange, that one. Anyway. But when you, part of becoming an adult is you accept, well, your heroes have flaws. And another quote, and I don't think I came up with this one, but I love these. This is another book I need to write on, the aspirational aphorism and what these things really mean. But the idea that growing up means accepting that people are flawed and that they can still be good. That the quote I was thinking of is that great men are very rarely good men. in a sense of, like, they're going to make all kinds of mistakes. Maybe they were a womanizer, philanderer behind the scenes. Maybe they had a drug addiction. Maybe they, made horrible mistakes in their childhood, went to prison for it, came out, reformed, and went on to do great things. Doesn't erase the past, but also the past doesn't erase their accomplishments and what they've done. So I have the same thing on Andrew Tate and Elon Musk is like, yeah, we can look at it and go, we might wish they weren't spreading their seed quite so thin. That's not optimal. But does it negate everything else they're doing? No, it doesn't. You take the good with the bad. You don't have to endorse the bad. You can say, well, that's not good, but let's set that aside and focus on this other stuff that is relevant. So yeah, I just wanted to get that out there. There's many different ways to be a hero. It doesn't. There's not only one. There's one formula that has like infinite variables and expression. It's amazing. So okay, I'll stop there. That's a lot.
No, like I'll get into what Andrew showed me about myself. Okay, and so I go to bed. It was like a Tuesday night. I wake up the next morning, and Andrew Tate and Sterling Cooper, Justin's other good friend who he was living with at the time, their souls were hanging out, and Sterling was just making sure everybody's okay. He's like, I just want to make sure. And Andrew was, quite upset. He can't speak on YouTube anymore. He lost his channel, and he got his payment processing center taken away, rightfully or wrong. I'm not judge or jury here. That's not my role. My role is to help connect him to his soul, right? So, but it was interesting when I arrived in his life, because it seemed like I'm working in lockstep with someone. My guy from high school is former FBI. We'll get to that in a minute. Okay. So anyway, then that day, the next day, I started bestowing questions. I'm like, you want me to interrogate him out? And my guy, he's an interrogation expert, right? And my intuition, a male soul, is telling me what to do. Okay, you're gonna ask him this, you ask him this. I'm like, in person? Like, is he gonna be locked up? Like, you want me to confront? No, Andrew, what? So then the next day, he's like, no, you're going to do it from home. We're just going to talk to his soul. I'm like, okay, that I can do, right? I can talk to his soul, and as long as he ain't in the same room, like, we're cool. And so then I started asking him questions like, why was it necessary for you personally to stomp around the globe screaming, I'm a man? Like, I'm holding up the mirror, trying to like hit him at exact emotional points to help him unearth this wound from his shadow, which was in his root chakra, which would typically be a maternal wound, typically. Now, granted, I haven't talked to Andrew, so I'm not going to say what he told me, but like that was one question. Another question was, why was it necessary for the universe to turn up the volume on your healing message so loudly that you got kicked off social media and had your payment processing center disconnected? What the fuck, dude? Like, this is like soul level, like, dude, like we're holding space, but like you're pushing it. And so finally, after like 2 minutes of really intense questioning, he's like, I'll just tell you. And so men, this is what I appreciate about men, is that a competitor will know when he's lost out of respect for the game. Done. I had, and so then I finally, I'm like, who emasculated you as a child? Oh, okay, I'll just freaking tell you. Cool. But that is, that's Andrew Tate, like being one of the best competitors on the planet, 4-time UFC world champion. I want to see someone, how many people can beat that? Like, that takes some serious, like, pulling pain out of your shadow, finding self-belief and self-confidence. And, did he do it all in balanced ways? Probably not. Probably not. But that's like, did Winston Churchill accomplish everything he accomplished because everything was balanced? No, he was an alcoholic and a womanizer too, I think. Like, we haven't figured it out yet. Like, we're still figuring ourselves out. We're figuring out how to be, a soul having a human experience, that our emotions are about ourselves, that the universe is a mirror showing us ourselves in every moment. If you see someone else being, selfish, that's the time to ask yourself, oh, how am I selfish? Because the universe is a mirror. See someone else being an asshole, think, oh, how am I being an asshole? Now, I'm not saying those other people aren't being selfish and aren't being an asshole. Probably are, but we have no control over that. And worrying about them distracts the person from taking care of themselves. And the only way to improve the planet is to open your own heart so that you can share that with other people and help them open their hearts. Hence, changing the world's an inside job.
Absolutely.
So, that's how it got started. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, while you were mentioning that, sometimes I got to get ideas out or they're just gone. It's like if I choose not to say it, I'm never going to say it. So it just inspired me to think of the idea of I'm not a Christian, but I have an appreciation of many different mythologies, and one of them is the Christian mythology, so to speak.
Yeah.
And one of the great phrases that I think there's so much misunderstanding about how these things actually work. So I'll give the phrase first. Judge not, lest ye be judged. And
Mm.
a lot of people misunderstand that as you can never discern good from bad. You're not allowed to say, I judge that, I don't want it in my life. It's like you're not allowed to draw boundaries. That's not what that means at all.
Yeah.
That's but what it is you know any standard you apply to others is also a judgment against yourself. Do I meet that standard? So by judging, you are judging yourself as much as the other person. Exactly what you say is like, I judge that person to be an asshole. Why? What are those behaviors? And then the mirror part is, and some people don't go this next step. They
Right.
block it out, or they legitimately lack the IQ. I don't know what it is with some people, but they don't go, oh, wait a minute. Do I do those things? Now I've created and I'm enacting a standard. Do I meet my own standard? That's, I think, what that phrase really means. But go ahead.
No, yeah. I mean, like, I love Carl Jung, and he says what irritates us about others leads us to an understanding of ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so many people are in fight or flight right now, are just responding to trauma, like this whole communism, socialist thing, victim, oppressor. That's fight or flight. You're either good or you're bad. Pick which one.
Yeah,
That
yeah. It's a
is said.
very borderline splitting type of thing. You're with us or you're against us. You're one of the good people. You're one of the
Yeah.
bad people. Oh, sorry, daughter. I think I hit the cat with a pen. There's a very cult like you're either in and you believe literally everything, or if you disagree on one thing, you're out. I mean, the cult is
Oh, yeah.
100%. It's
It's the
all or
perfect.
nothing. Yeah.
And it comes from childhood trauma. They're looking for that, the easy glide through life because no one taught them this is life. Like I hear people saying, well, now's not a good time to have a kid. I said, oh, because 200 years ago with the high infant and maternal mortality rates, like that was a good time when half of the kids died.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
but
How about
people
during the Hundred Years
can't.
War in Europe, or before that during the Black Plague? I mean, people,
Right.
or before that when we were living in caves.
World
It
War
was,
One.
yeah, yeah,
World
yeah.
War II. Like there was never a good time. But okay. So anyway, okay, keep going with Andrew. So that happened, and then I helped Justin for about another month, and then one day my intuition said, tell him that God says thank you. Now I don't know because Andrew Tate said the powers that be took me out. And that Justin just cut me off like out of nowhere, just cut me off. I'm gone, wouldn't talk to me anymore. I'm like,
Mm,
okay, I don't know if God says is something, that people understand that someone's, God on earth would be FBI, CIA, Mossad, and my ex-husband's Israeli, right? So, and who did special work for the Israeli military he couldn't talk about for 30 years. He never used the word Mossad, but, he spoke Arabic and Hebrew and English really well. Could be, it
sure.
could be. So anyway, so that happened. And then I went back to a guy at yoga. So there was a fire engineer. He's younger. And he was kind of checking me out at yoga, but I didn't know he's a fire engineer. He's like, 6'4", perfect body, like hot yoga. I'm like, okay, damn, okay. Okay, okay. And the first guy at yoga had left to start because the yoga instructor who was a dominatrix started her own yoga studio, you know. Okay, all the fun stuff. So I started interacting with the fire engineer and everything. And then Andrew gets thrown in solitary confinement. So I
Mm,
was on to support him in solitary confinement because I resonated with being that lonely. I would sit in my garage, I'm in now, it was dark, and in my recliner, and I would just talk to his soul and help him self-reflect. Because why did I need that as a mirror in my life? Because I needed to understand how lonely I have felt my whole life because I rejected so much of myself. So I had failed relationships left, right, and center, no long-term friendships, a lot of alone time. And granted, I needed that, like my travels in China and stuff, a lot of alone time. That I needed a lot of alone time to process all my emotional pain. I needed to be able to do it, but that's not a healthy, balanced woman to have so much alone time,
mm.
but my soul planned my life. Okay, take on the problems of the day, all the paternal wounds. If I read, oh, if you have a father wound, you have all these problems. I'm like, yeah, I got those. Oh, if you have a maternal wound, you have all these problems. I'm like, yeah, I got those too. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah, it's
Like
not one or the
out
other.
left, right, and center drop me in, fuck me up, and then I'm gonna figure it out. And that's I love it. I love it. Like that's let me like engineering left brain, let me figure it out. So when I was talking to Andrew Soul, I'd ask him questions like, okay, Andrew, so you know that your external reality is a reflection of your internal reality and how you feel about yourself, right? He's like, yeah. I said, okay, Andrew. So from that perspective, why are you in solitary confinement? And I take it down to a soul level because that is the connection to the soul. And that is women's work. Like, I got to all these guys and helped them all become far more balanced without ever going on a date, without ever letting them have sex with me. That is proving a
Hmm.
point because these men in red pill, well, what are women good for? Babies and sex. Okay, okay. Oh, yes. But all like self-reflection is feminine, forgiveness is feminine, and they're like, oh, we don't need women to self-reflect. Right? You're so busy being right, being better than women that you only attract in women who don't intellectually challenge you. Of course you don't.
Yep.
Like my brother, well, I'm always right. I'm like, yeah, because you attract in people who agree that you're always right, and that's validating your emotional pain. You can't be wrong because you can't handle it. You were so wrong as a child. This is this is like the other. So if I'm wrong there, I'm gonna be right here, and
Oh yeah.
but
Well,
my
there.
brother just like these guys.
Well, there's also a well, there's so many things broken in our culture. It's one of the reasons we're in a culture war. But one thing we seem to miscommunicate, and I say we, it's like I'm not doing it, but there's messages out there, the dominant narrative, so to speak.
Yeah.
Uh, there's a. I'm just trying to conceptualize this. There's I think a false dichotomy. You either respect a woman or you view her as a object of sexual desire. And
Mm,
what we've done is split something that was not meant to be split in that
yeah.
formulation. The ideal merging is for you to have respect for and intellectually engage and spiritually engage with the person who is also an object of your sexual desire, so that you merge those two things rather than saying, it's what is it, the Madonna and the horror complex, that
Yeah.
that type of thing where a woman is one or the other. No, ideally she's both. She's a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets, as they say. You,
One
you
man.
want and
Yeah.
one man, yeah, and
One man. Yeah.
the same thing too with that. It's I don't know if there's a well, no, and it works both ways. It's not a gendered thing as far as only how men view it, but women too. Is like she should not just look to him as a beast of burden to be put to the fields
Right.
but also if you have to continue the analogy, if you have a horse, you got to make sure his hooves are in good condition and that his in curry and groom, and
Yeah.
make sure he's fed and watered so that he can have the full energy to get out there and plow the field. That's it's kind of that, and since you can't pull a plow the way the horse can, women to men,
Yeah.
then you got to do the there's a what is it, a denigration in some ways. There's an elevation of the hero and less so of the support classes, and that's, I get it. I get why that's necessary, because if you were to build a hierarchy, I mean, the hero actually has to do the thing, but he can't do the thing without the components that come from other people around him, with all the support he gets along the way. And that's why I look at myself. I'm not the hero. Don't look to me for to be your savior or to fix all the problems in the world. Not going to happen. I'm the crazy hermit in the woods that you come across when you've lost your way. And he just says,
Get back on track. But that's
you
a
want to
form.
get out of here that way. That's my job. That's all I do. And then the hero does his thing, and I stay in the woods.
That's heroic work. The fact that you're able to sit in the darkness, sit in your solitude, and be there for those, wandering souls,
Mm-hmm.
and direct them, that's heroic work too. Like I had to, figure out that I am my own heroine. No one's coming to rescue me. And if I want to figure out my own crap, I got to friggin' do it. I mean, I am very blessed with I have a great mind, highly analytical. I see problems. I used to be in risk and issue assessment at a major health insurance company, and I was highly made them pay millions of dollars of claims because I find problems and I don't give up. And this is why I'm successful now, is because I find problems and I don't give up. So this whole thing about women not understanding their role. So what I see, and so what happened was I met the first fire engineer, and then I got interested in the fire, the mental health problems in the fire department. But he's younger, and then he had sex with at least one married yoga instructor, and so we did. But that's
Not
him.
great, but.
but that's him working through his stuff, right? And then I got laid off in the fall of 2023, and this is all in the book. And I met the fire captain, and 6'7", full head of hair, like sexy with grit is an understatement for this man. Like I saw him, and I had seen him there, but my intuition didn't tell me to pay attention. But no shirt and just Levi's, like man's hot, okay, hot. Does handstands and splits and hot yoga. Like, whoa, okay. I'm like, this has got to be my guy. Like, okay, he's like 4 years older than me. I can heal all the firefighters. This has got to be my freaking guy, right? So, so I see him by the water fountain, and I look at his shoulders, and I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, well, if I stand here, maybe he'll stand next to me, right? And firefighters, a lot of them, like 57, there's 32 global studies showing that 57% of firefighters have PTSD. And if you have PTSD as an adult, it means you do not have a secure attachment to self. You don't know how to process your emotional pain, and that you got from your childhood. So then they also have, and also I have quotes in there, Dr. Gabor Mate, that there's studies showing this too. So so I knew, okay, he's probably, has his challenges, but also he's psychic. So he turned around, he's 6'7", I'm 5'5". He turned around, went right eye level to me, and I'm like, oh, he just like took me, like knew psychically that I was interested and just knew exactly how to get me. Now, granted, he was good at that. But the communication and the talking, okay, then we ran into challenges, right? So 3 months later, I had my first enlightenment experience. And I didn't know it was coming, even though in 2021, this was March of 2024 is when I had it. 2021, I was shown that I would experience enlightenment with a different man, not Tim in the book, my first hero, but a different man. And I'm like, oh, okay, like I was told, but I'm like, okay, whatever. I just kept going, So so I'm sitting in my chair for 3 days, just vibrating really high. And the second day I heard enlightenment, 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 like an alarm going off in my head. It said it 3 times. So I understood how high I was vibrating. I'm like, zzz, I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, in the bathroom, like, zzz, my chair. So, but that day, but right after that, I asked the universe, I'm like, okay, like, what do I need to heal? And first we talked about the family challenges. I'm like, well, that doesn't really explain my problems. Okay, let's take it down to men and women. Oh, to say my problems. I'm like, okay, just take me back to the beginning. There was God, and then what happened next? Like, we're so up with the population collapse and everything. And I'm just like, I will create a better society for my kids. Like, I don't care. I'm so freaking done with this shit. There's a woman and there's a man. This ain't that hard, but we're making it super hard. So the universe told me that, showed me that, God, we refer to as a man, and God creates and orchestrates. I'm like, well, creation is feminine. So we're giving men credit for feminine work? This is the problem. Yeah, okay, we're not valuing the feminine. That's what kind of came out. We're not valuing the feminine, and the feminine's ability to create. And then right after that, my guy, who I call Jared in the book, from high school, his soul came through, which was kind of, I was surprised, but I also had a picture of him in my phone that I didn't remember in the moment, reminding me that these kind of guys are attracted to me. I'm like, okay, because my ex-husband's like 5'7", and but I was always in control. I sought out men where I could be in control, because that's how I felt, because I was in my masculine. Now I'm like, okay, want to get back in my feminine, the real men that, over 6 foot tall. I'm like, oh no, now I'm scared. So I took that wisdom and I kept processing my pain. And then I wrote my book last summer, and then I thought, and then I never got, together with the fire captain, and I wrote like an email to the dean of public safety about potential dereliction of duty and the cadet program and the challenges I saw, and how, they take an oath of office to protect the most vulnerable, being women and children, but yet they're all sex addicts, having sex with women and children and mothers, which destroys women's ability to pair bond as wives and mothers. And we're 20 years from population collapse. Like, what the hell? You're the friggin' fire department, and you're also destroying society. Now, granted, they have the, okay, other problem, but I pointed out that it's the cadet program where I see the stopgap is, because if we can get to firefighters in the cadet program before they've chosen a wife, because most of them are male, right? And when they're still traumatized, they're in their feminines, they're likely to attract a masculine woman who's not healthy in her heart space, and that would set them up for failure, for mental health failure. But if we can get them at the cadet level and get them to be more in their masculine, then they're more likely to attract a feminine woman. They'll have that emotional support at home, which will give them long-term success as a fire, and I went over this with Jack and, sorry, Jim, sorry, in the book.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like saw the whole thing and I gave them all that feedback. I'm like, hey, here's your problem, right? And so I wrote the book, and then a week later, I was guided to reach out to my guy from high school. I'm like, okay, all right, this guy, like right before right before the election, and that was November 3rd. And on that day, I was guided to make a bunch of Instagram posts on my Red Pill Shaman account, like feminine calling in her masculine, the pair bonds, like all showing me myself, right? So I reach out, and then he immediately opens to me. And this is like where we're starting to get into some visions. And then I was pretty quickly shown that when I was 5 and he was 7, now it's likely we were at elementary school together, but my memory is very poor and I haven't talked to him. But based on where his house was and my house was, we would have been at the same elementary school. Okay. So, and so it showed me how much I'm willing to just fight to help him connect to his soul, to get him. I would say, I love you, and say his real name. And then I would encourage him to say it back, because the universe is a mirror. If he says, I love you, Carrie, that means he loves himself in my presence. That's the mirror. And so, but I just showed like the self-belief that he's my masculine and that I need to like scream from the top of Mount Everest to help him connect to his soul. And I would say that in terms of being avoidant, he was like 10 times the fire captain avoidant. I mean, it was just, it was gnarly, gnarly, gnarly. But then I started being shown like visions. I'm like, I don't remember this happening. I don't remember him breaking into my house. I don't remember him throwing me over his shoulder to have sex with me. Like, these visions came through, and that's really what I wanted to get it. We'll get into it in a second.
Yeah, yeah. But don't tell me too much until we actually start talking about it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but what I was shown, in the midst of that, I'm like, okay, he's this special to me. Like, how are souls created? Because I know that we were all souls. And this is like evolution. We're all souls. We're all connected. Okay, we get it. Okay, now we want to experience ourselves. Well, we need a mirror for that. We need a mirror to see ourselves. And the best mirrors are opposite. You know what tall is, so you know what short is. You don't know what male is, so you know what feminine is. I'm like, okay. Well, okay, so can you explain to me how the masculine and feminine souls are created? They're like, yeah. I'm like, okay. They said, okay. The intent to create the masculine soul creates the feminine soul, showing you how important intent is. Okay. Then the feminine soul tears out half of her heart chakra to create the masculine soul, right? Feminine souls are source energy. That's why we are the ones that help people attach to the soul, attach to yourself, secure attachment to self, right? Men are once removed. That's why men can detach from their emotions more easily. They're set up to deal with death. Women are set up to deal with birth. Like, we channel the soul and the baby, it all comes out of us, right? That's like, we get that special. Then what special do men get? They get to provide, to protect, give the name. And, I had a conversation with my older daughter who has her man, like her always and forever, and like, so you're gonna take his last name? And she, I knew she would, but she's also in college and around all the feminism bullshit. And I had to make sure, because he knows I have his back. Like, that's like a good mother-in-law, is when the future son-in-law knows that the mother-in-law has his back, right? In the healthy way. And so I explained to her, I'm like, look, you get to channel the soul, and the baby gets to be in you and come out of you. He gets to give the name. That's his paternal line that he got, he married this beautiful woman, is always and forever, and this amazing woman's gonna have his kids. That's what he gets. And like, but I have to drill it into my daughters just to have a chance, because it's so bad, But this is when I've shown that wisdom. This is where women, because you see so many interviews with women, what do women bring? Oh, me. Well, what is that? They don't friggin' know what it is to be a healthy feminine woman, to be able to lean a man through self-reflection, who, guiding them in terms of holding space so they can communicate well. Like, I have in my book a whole list of things I had to be able to do, like forgive, compassion, nurturing, intuition, creativity, holding space, like processing my emotions, like so many feminine things I had no idea how to do. So of course my marriage failed. Of course my relationships failed. And I had to take responsibility that I didn't know that. Now, sure, traumatic childhood, but my soul planned that. And if our souls are planning our lives, how is anyone a victim?
Yeah, I've had that thought to myself too. That we know what we're in for before we come here, and then we get
Yeah.
here. So when I rather than shake your fist at the sky and curse God. They say. Well, I think Job, one of his neighbors told Job to do that. Why don't you curse God? He's like, but for me, I curse myself. Like, why did I do this to myself? Why did I need this experience? Fuck.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah,
guess I
right,
did.
right.
But I wanted to expand a little bit on the male female energy thing, and why is the God of the Bible masculine? And it's ancient wisdom that feminine is chaos energy and masculine is order, and you need both. And the Egyptians had this with the god Kek, the frog god, frog-headed god Kek, and his female counterpart Heket. So he was the they inverted that a little bit too, but he was the god of chaos, and she was the goddess of the new dawn or the new order after the night of chaos. But anyway, they had it backwards. But the women's, and we don't look at this as order is superior to chaos, because chaos is creative energy. It's raw material.
Yeah.
Nothing can be made without the material. So you have to have the existing chaos of unassembled raw materials, and then you have to have a orderly process of putting them together into something useful. So really, they are inseparable, essential parts of that's. I love the yin yang. I call it one of the oldest names for God. Before we had language, we could draw a circle and with a line, and one half is dark and one half is light, or whatever. And that's how people started to understand the universe. That's why I call it one of the oldest names for God. So yeah, the idea is that raw material without assembly is just it has no utility, but a very powerful ability to assemble is nothing without raw material. So it's only ordered that way because the raw material has to take shape, and it was going to be one partner or the other. It could have very well been, as the Egyptians conceived it, that the male frog energy was chaos. That's how they described it, and they ascribed I think they probably did it because I could be, Egyptian scholars out there, but feel free to correct me. But because they conceived of speaking of conception, the woman is the one who put the parts together to make a new human. So that would be creating new order. It's a new assembled person. They just reversed it, but they had the same concept, just in reverse. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there before. But I think it's probably a pretty good time to try and jump into the vision thing. I mean, we're about an hour in, and I want to give you at least another hour to talk about the vision if we need that much time.
Can I get water and go to the bathroom real quick?
Oh yeah, do you want to do just like a 10-minute break?
I need like 2, but whatever you want to do, I'll just be right back.
I was gonna go smoke.
Go have a smoke. Yeah,
that's
cool.
That's fine. Okay, let me write down the time. You free to go, and I'll be right back too.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
Okay. Good enough there. So I'm actually probably let's start a new page. Okay. So I don't got to switch pages in the middle. Okay. So as we were talking a little bit previously, when we first made contact, I told you that I'm most practiced with doing regular old unconscious, what I call nocturnal visions experienced during sleep. So regular dreams. I'm best with those. But as you may be aware, Carl Jung, in his work, when his clients did not have a dream, he said, well, let's just make one up. And it would just be a fabricated or artificial dream, he would call it. And it was the equivalent of I think he would put people in a relaxed, if not meditative state. I think Freud experimented more with like hypnosis and stuff like that. But Jung was like, just start telling me a story, and let me kick my shoes off here, and we'll see what we can make of it, because there's going to be unconscious material in there anyway. Like, why do we choose the elements of a fantasy any more than a dream? It's just a mental construct. So there's very much similarity. One of the books I'm going to get around to editing, so I've got 17 so far, and on my list, swear to God, is one called I can't remember that, but it's on the subject of daydreams. And if we let our minds wander, we say, we become inattentive to the current moment, and we go off into what if, or it's basically just what if this happens, what if that happens. And it can be, intentional, purposeful. What do I think the likely results of this scenario will be? We play it out in our mind. Or it can just be, I had a pleasant thought, and we just follow it to see where that leads us. But that also tells us about ourselves. It says, this is what I find pleasant. Okay, why? What do I find pleasant about it? What would it take to accomplish that in my life? Do I want that? And sometimes we decide, nah, it's too much work, or that's not for me. We all have in our moments of.
Sorry.
Say again.
They're outside my garage, of course, right now. Hang on one second. You hear that? Hey.
Oh, barely. Just when you talk, I hear it. Is someone doing some yard work?
Keep going. Okay.
It's okay. It's when I'm talking, I don't hear it, and when you talk, your voice is well over it. So it's not a big deal. Anyway, I do all of this to just say that I'm not practiced with that. But what you've got for us is not a traditional dream experience during sleep, but yours is more of a waking vision in that sense, almost like an involuntary daydream. Is that how you would describe it, or?
Yeah, I mean, it was, if we use the visions that I experienced when I experienced enlightenment, that's what I'd like to talk about, because that's how I faced my fears of sexual assault.
Oh, yeah.
So I had a fear of men in me that I got out in 2021. And then in this last December of 2024, I finally faced my fear of being sexually assaulted. So, which is one reason I attracted all these men into my life. Now, I'm not saying that these men have sexually assaulted women, but they have that energy in them, because we have 15 to 20 generations of our ancestors' DNA, of our emotional pain in our DNA. So easily any of them could have had it from there and not done it. So I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not like, I have no evidence that they've done something in this lifetime,
Sure.
But of course I'm not judge or jury. Okay.
And we can get vibes from people that don't comport with their actual behavior. That's not at all unusual. I did want to say real quick, so we didn't discuss anything about the nature of the dream. There's two dreams I typically will not address, and they both revolve around specific childhood abuse and specifically rape or sexual assault. Hey, she doesn't want to play. But stop it. There you go. Now that said, I'm willing to work around that a little bit.
I'll be general, because
it's not because of the content. It's because of the risk of doing it wrong. Like what? So I'm not cutting you off, and I'm not saying we're not going to do this. But I want to explore it a little bit, just the concept and healthy boundaries around it. Why do I say that? Is because this is not counseling and therapy. We're just two people talking about dreams and sharing experiences and our thoughts and whatnot. So if someone brings to me a dream and it's a very intense dream and it's about actual experiences that happen to them and they're reliving it in their dreams, I generally would recommend people take that to private counseling and therapy, so that it can be handled in a professional manner where there's recourse to responsibility and maybe even legal standards, licensure, different things that put a real tight constraint. So what I'm hearing from you, though, is that these are things in the past. You did have a vision regarding those subjects, but you at this time feel you've moved past it to the degree where we're not exploring it presently as much as reflecting on it. Uh,
I have no,
if that makes more sense, does that
yeah,
seem a fair characterization? Or
totally. I have no
okay,
evidence any of this stuff ever happened. So here's one thing I'd like to kind of get into it,
sure,
discuss is that what I notice with myself, when I open up to a fear, I start being shown visions with people in my real life that I don't remember happening.
okay,
So my question then was, okay, I don't remember any of this happening. Are these like thoughts that I picked up on? Because all of our souls are constantly communicating through our heart spaces. So when I think of you, your soul gets that information. And it could store it in the subconscious. You could be conscious of it, but you could also store it in your subconscious, right? It's one
sure,
way we project our fears onto other people and they internalize it. It all happens at a subconscious level. So one thing I wanted to kind of bring attention to is that I think that we get ourselves into trouble when we start, going into the past. Yes, we need to go into it, but we also need to be cognizant that just because we're shown something doesn't mean that it happened. So
gotcha.
that's like the distinction. That's something that I had to like. I spent hours and hours because I don't have access. Like I haven't talked to my guy from high school yet, but he's 10 times as avoided as a fire captain from East LA who's current. You know what I mean? Like the fire captain have a lot of reasons to be avoidant of his heart. So if
So
he's 10 times, it's a serious situation. So I'm like, okay, I understand why maybe he hasn't called.
So just to clarify, for my understanding, you did have some real experiences in the past, but the present or recent vision we're going to talk about is about things that, as far as you know, didn't happen. They're visions
Yes.
of, okay. And that's, well, see, that fits very well with the dream because dreams didn't happen. Now, even if you're dreaming about maybe some past stuff that did happen, the dream itself and the events of the dream aren't necessarily reflective of, they're not historical fact in that sense.
Yeah.
So what I want to do is remain true to my own standard while still engaging with you and giving you the benefit of this experience to the degree that I can. So I'm trying to handle it carefully, responsibly. So yeah, because if someone say experienced a recent sexual assault and they're having nightmares about it, I'm like, I can't do
That's
that
different.
here. That's I should consider that above my pay grade in terms of this. Like, this is a free experience for you and me
Yeah.
both. And it's unfortunate that people have to pay, but it's a service, et cetera, et cetera. But the idea is that in the right environment, it can be handled more responsibly. So this is good. I feel more comfortable proceeding now that we kind of teased out a little bit of actually what's going on. So
Yeah.
what I do is just for my dream process, I just shut up and listen, and the guest tells me their experience of the vision, the dream, from beginning to end, like a story, and then we go back and review it together. So do you want to do that? You want to just jump into the details?
Yeah, so okay, so my first enlightenment experience, I received the wisdom that we need to give women credit for creating human life, that femininity fuels masculinity, and showed me the vision of the woman's the center of the household and the man's the leader of the household, equally important, different roles. So then um my guy from high school came through briefly, and then I started showing these visions, and it was all around my daughters being sexually assaulted by their father, which I have no, and I've even asked them, they said, no, it did not happen. And they're 22 and 24. They would remember. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this was all my fear of being sexually assaulted and me projecting it onto them and then them internalizing it because they've had, challenges with men. I'll just say, I can't speak for them, but they've had challenges with men. And so I started being shown that the fire captain, who's like 6'7", would show up and rescue my kids every time. And I never introduced my kids to a man in the 20 years I've been divorced. I never introduced them to a man. I never brought it because I wasn't getting married. If I'm not getting married, you don't need to meet him. That was my rule with men. And so, I mean, it was bad. Like at certain times, there's like razors were involved, guns were involved. Like it was gnarly, gnarly. And I was so exhausted on day 3 in the middle of the night that I actually called the police.
Hmm.
Then I was being shown things that these red pill guys were potentially coming after my older daughter, who's tall and beautiful and a lot like me. So it's like, oh, the mother's not available, the mother's too old, and let's go to the daughter. Like men can think like that. That's a logical thought, you know. And of course, because I'm attracting in younger men, okay, well, she's too old. She can't have kids anymore. What's the daughter? So it's like it was a normal thing for them to kind of be attracted to my older daughter. So that's, that's, I guess, the kind of the substance of those visions in that the ones in the fall are around me. So it's like first the onion layer I had to deal with is that I had projected my fear of being sexually assaulted onto my daughters, and my daughters internalized that. So I had to deal with that layer. Then once that layer was dealt with, then I had more healing to do. Then in the fall I was ready to face my personal fear of being sexually assaulted. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess we can start with that's where I started.
For sure. Yeah. So do you have a particular vision experience that we could kind of isolate and detail? Just one. At this day, at this time, I had this vision, and here's the sequence of events in the vision. That's usually how I operate. Is, we pick a discrete instance of a dream, tell the story of the dream. I was here. I did this. This happened. I felt this way. I saw this thing. Do you have a narrative to tell about any of the visions? Just one.
Well, yeah, I guess just with my daughters, what I was shown is that all like me and my daughters were all being watched by like the police and the fire captain because we knew this stuff was going to go down for whatever reason. We just knew it was going to happen. And so right when it started to happen, then like the fire captain would rush in and stop it and take care of their dad. And even like there was ones where he committed suicide. The dad, he hasn't, and that his wife had also committed suicide because of all the abuse they'd have for the kids. And granted, they had, a tense relationship and stuff. But I would say like that's the kind of, how it went down. And at different times, my son would be involved and he would, help his sisters and protect them. And I couldn't protect my daughters at their dad's house. And so I think.
So, do you have a recollection of a particular vision we could use as a kind of a
that would be the vision.
Example.
Like the dad and the stepmom were coming to my younger daughter's door, and they had a razor in their hands that they were going to hurt her sexually with a razor. And then I'm shown that the fire captain Jim rushed in the house and took control of the situation, saved her, and then both of the parents were killed.
Okay.
Dad and the stepmom were killed. Yeah. And that my daughter needed to be like, she needed that kind of revenge on them because of all the other abuse.
I'm writing this down here with this girl. Look at her.
I help it. I just help.
She's helping. Absolutely. She's what I call it value-added content.
Yeah.
Save daughter, dad, stepmother, killed. Okay, that's great. And that is, to anyone out there in the audience who heard me say in the beginning, reach out to me. This is easy. You can't do it wrong. That's perfect. That's a vision. That's a dream. That's a contained sequence of events. And it can be a very vague description. These people were there. This thing happened. And there's our story. Now, what the interpretation portion of it is, we dig a little deeper, we go back into it, and we go through the sequence of events so that I can see it a little more clearly as you do. So when you say the dad and the stepmom were coming to the daughter's door, is that where the vision began? The first action of the vision. Okay.
Yeah, they were like that. Orly, my youngest daughter, had misbehaved, and that they were coming to teach her a lesson. But she also had a weapon like under her pillow, so yeah.
Okay.
Because I also had fears that he was training them to be like in the Mossad, like training them to kill people.
Gotcha.
That fear came out, but then also I was kind of like, okay, well then maybe they have, and they're all black. Like my son's an Eagle Scout and a second-degree black belt in Taekwondo, and my daughters are both red belts in Taekwondo, so they have some skills, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. With her sitting there like this, I wish I could teach her to say "Polly want a cracker." That would just be hilarious. So, in terms of seeing the vision through your eyes from your experience, what was the physical environment? You said they're coming. When the dreams or the vision started, were they in a vehicle traveling? Were they approaching the front door of a house?
They were inside her dad's house where they live.
Okay. And the idea of coming to someone or somewhere means going from one place to another. Just in terms of that, were they moving towards where was your daughter and where were they when they moving from to get to where she was?
They came out of the master bedroom, and she was in her bed, and they were outside her door.
Okay. And her door was closed?
Yes.
Okay. And then did they take any action to open it, or was it locked? Were they pounding on it?
I mean, what I remember is that like they pushed in, and then right around that same time, the fire captain came in the house and took care of it.
Trying to formulate my thoughts and turn them into language. It's not always easy. Now, was your daughter in her room holding the door closed? Was it difficult to?
She was in bed. She was in bed, but she kind of felt them coming, and it's like her hand slipped under her pillow where she had a weapon. Because in those visions, like they had been assaulted in the house. Just in the visions.
So part of the context was that she had been hurt before and had a weapon to prepare because she knew more future hurt was likely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So they were just opening the door. It wasn't blocked. It wasn't locked. It wasn't. There was hardly any resistance.
I mean, the hard thing is that when I would review the visions, and then more would get added, and that's when I realized, okay, is this reality or not? Because this changes and that changes, and then it's like it's like if you want to wonder where the end of the rabbit hole is, there isn't one.
No,
There'll
it's
be
true.
more and more. It's like that's why you can't get to enlightenment going through shame. That's why I think like BDSM and stuff, it elicit all these emotions and all this stuff, and then we're going to get to enlightenment. And that's not how it works.
Yeah. No, that always makes me think of the Hellraiser movie with the Cenobites. It's like it's horrifying to us that they would think pain causes pleasure, but then there is a subset of people for whom receiving pain, it hurts, but it's a means to eliciting that emotional and physical pleasant sensation that comes afterwards or through that.
The way they know how to open is they know how to open to receive pain because that's what they were trained as children.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't know how to open to receive pleasure. It's the whole BDS. That's a whole other. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, it's almost kind of like what is it? People who it's easier to understand, or the microcosm would be someone who's not comfortable with a hug, but they don't mind getting punched in the shoulder as an expression of affection. But to be held gently just creeps. But they so uncomfortable with that, even though you would think a gentle caress is the most loving thing you could do. No, this person doesn't want that. They want to. If you're going to show affection, it has to be in some physically aggressive way. And that's okay. That's kind of how guys, we don't cuddle each other as much as she's going to get. There you go. As much as we prefer, show me you love me by insulting me in just the perfect way because you know me and you know what bugs me and you know I'm not going to overreact and start a fight with you. It's one of those things where it's like it's really interesting the male bonding dynamic. Yeah. Okay, so we haven't gotten very far. Where did you said they were holding they had like a razor blade. Okay, no, I already wrote that down. Teach a lesson, razor blade. And you knew it was like specifically intent upon doing some genital violence.
Yeah.
with the razor blade. Did you have any sense of what that was going to be?
Anal violence.
Oh, okay.
So like I've personally never explored BDSM, but I know like my first guy was really into BDSM and I pick up on thoughts.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
like
I'd say even for most BDSM folks, razor blades to the anus is not something. It's not part of the usual standard equipment.
no,
that's taken it to another level, and that's teasing out the meaning of these things. So I say this to folks too. If you come to me and say, Ben, I had a dream in which I stabbed my dog, the dog I love, and I woke up screaming, horrified that I'd done. Ben, do I want to kill my dog? Is that a secret part of me? I'm like, 99.9% chance, no. That is not what that dream was about. There's a lot of ways we do harm to someone and then or could do harm to someone, and then we look at it metaphorically often to give ourselves the little distance. So, the dog could be your best friend because dogs are man's best friend, and dreams love puns. And the knife isn't a knife, and the stabbing, you stabbed the dog in the back. Stabbed in the back doesn't mean literally stabbed, it means betrayal. So you betrayed your best friend, and the person goes, oh shit, I did.
yeah.
Oh, I get it now. So did you stab your dog or did you betray your best friend? That's two different things, but the visual, the visual. So, anyway, we'll get to that part. That's why we do this. First, we got to see it. Then we can try and, that's a claw. Stop it. I'm going to get the water bottle.
About stabbing.
It is not time to play. He wants to.
Yeah, no, wait, when isn't it time to play, Dad?
This is true. It's always time to play. I just hope he doesn't.
His hairband.
If you could see, you would. There's wounds that never heal because as soon as one is gone, another one appears. So I'm just covered in scratches all the time, and little bite marks. That's okay. That's all the fun of being a cat daddy. Okay, so I'm glad I started a new page because I'm starting a third one here too. And see, you gave me this tiny little. I wrote down 4 lines, and we've already got 3 times that many. Just out of trying to describe it a little more fully. Okay, so this you said it was the fire captain dude, and where did he come from? Charging down the hallway?
No, he was in his car. Like we knew things were going down, and like there's a police officer outside too, and that he went in right at the right time. And every vision, the fire captain would save them. And so that's really what helped me see, like, kind of experience safety around my kids. Oh, I finally tracked in a man who can save my kids, my fears, who can help me face my fears.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and that's, it's logical. He's a 6'7" fire captain out of East LA who oversees the Wildland Cadet Program.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No one's going to mess with that guy. Like that guy, he takes a shovel and walks the hill, puts out the fire with his bare hands. Like,
oh, yeah.
Man can handle his shit.
Yeah. And just like the idea that dog doesn't represent your dog. It was your dog in the dream. That's the visual you saw. But the concept is man's best friend. No, my best friend. The one that I betrayed, stabbed in the back. Hey, you bite me, you don't bite her. So the police and this specific person, this fire captain, is sometimes people get crystallized as icons in our mind as well. This is the representation of safe, protective masculine energy. So you put him in there as a representation for that idea. Now, I'm not saying that's for sure. Yeah. Maybe it is, but that's the idea that maybe we're looking for. It's not him exactly. It's what he represents to you in that sense. And it could be, safe, protective, masculine energies coming to save your daughter from harm. So, I mean, that makes general sense. So how he came from outside, how did he just came through the front door and then barreling down the hallway and.
Yeah, he just came and then he took control.
How did he approach? Was he at a dead run, knocking down doors? Was he moving more slowly?
Yeah, no, he was moving with purpose.
Okay.
To use a more military, moving with purpose.
No, what does that mean? I don't know, but there is some meaning in the idea of, well, how did the action occur? So that's moving with purpose. Fair enough. And that makes sense. It could have been I like to do
He wasn't
counterfactuals.
raging out of control, running it. I'm open the door. I'm going in. I'm taking over. It's like
Yeah.
he knew what he was doing.
That's why I
But
ask these type of
moving back,
questions, and I do in my mind the even sometimes I don't say it out loud, but the counterfactual. So what he didn't do was Incredible Hulk style smash through a
no,
wall, Kool-Aid Man. No, not like that. Nor was he moving at a leisurely pace, like he didn't really care if he got there in time. So those are different concepts involved. So this was moving with purpose. He was there to get a job done, and he did.
yeah, he did to take control, and he did.
Mhm.
That was the energy.
How did he take control? How did he engage with them physically, or
He
did they
had a
shrink
gun.
back from his
Came
presence?
in, he had a gun, and he no, I mean he was like had his foot on his head, like Orly was right there, like they signed the house over to the kids, like he had a plan and just took control, and then it was like, and then they died at the end.
So there was not simply his arrival scaring them off and they scurried into the darkness and disappeared, but there was a whole scene of how he dominated them specifically. And one of those portions was he had the ex on the ground with a boot on the head and a gun pointed at
Yep.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, the thing is, like when I had my first like longer conversation with him at yoga, it came out that my husband's probably ex-Mossad, that I helped Justin and Andrew, that like these are the men I attracted in my life. You want to come closer to me? Can you handle like I mean, it was but but that's the thing. That is when you're after a man's heart, that's the challenge. Like are you strong enough to keep all these other men that want me at bay? Are you? Because I was putting out wife energy. Like a lot of women don't understand. Well, he's never asked me to marry. Yeah, you slept with him the first date, and you're not putting out wife energy. I put out wife energy. Like you don't come. No one sleeps with me. No one takes me on a date. I'll check you out by talking to your soul. I'll keep you away from like you got to do that. You want in my internal world? Do the work, motherfucker. Like that is what women don't do because easy women create lazy men.
It's true.
Now these men, they're at the top, over 6 feet tall, good looking, good bodies, all these careers, get women like that because it's easy women. And then they don't have to do the work. So,
Oh
and then,
yeah.
and then complain. It's like, well,
And that's funny too, especially on like Twitter and whatnot, or X as they call it now. You'll put out something out there like, women should stop sleeping with men on the first date, and inevitably in the replies is, oh yeah, well what's men's responsibility? I'm like, yeah, men should stop doing that too. You're absolutely correct. It takes nothing away from my point, but I'm also looking at women specifically in that quote. Men should also be better. We should all be better. There's no So no matter what you say, someone's going to come along and go, actually, you forgot this one thing that's really important to me. And I'm like, okay, you're right about that too.
but like women,
Am I also right?
women do that way more than men do.
That's true. Yeah.
Because we're the emotional. We don't, we react. And this is why you protect women, because when you abuse the women, it takes us like 10 times longer to heal. We got to make all the connections in our brain. We got to process our emotions. Men with healthy testosterone can, hit their best friend and correct a problem, and their best friend's 2 minutes later. Never women would do that. Never.
Yeah. Well, there's also a bit of a misnomer that because women are less physically violent, that means they're less aggressive. And I think it's just different modes of expression. Women's aggression tends to be a little more covert, a little more spreading stories, reputation damage, ostracizing. I mean, things because they don't have the physical strength to just beat the hell out of somebody, except each other, but they don't. But that's also considered, unladylike, etc. There's a lot of social pressures on that, which is good. I don't think more women should fight physically,
No,
but they might get along better if they did. I'm just saying. But then they'd be more like men.
Media is shame game. Well, you're all racist and misogynistic. It's like, okay, well, the only reasons you could give me to vote for Kamala Harris is she's a black woman, which is racist and misogynistic. Universe is a mirror. Like,
I love that too. It's like, so let me get this straight. I'm racist, sexist, misogynistic, homophobic, Islamophobic, but am I wrong? And a lot of times, no.
I gotta share a story. So my daughter was 12. My daughter was 12. She spoke to me rudely. I'm like, "You're walking home," and she like got her dad and other adults to triangulate against me, and someone drove her back to my house, and that was kind of the beginning of a long years of problems between us.
Yeah.
So when we talked about that recently, I was like, well, yeah, but were you being a bitch? And she's like, well, I was a kid. And I'm like, no. I call her Jane in the book. I'm talking to you, Miss, in the top 1%, super smart, moved you up a grade in kindergarten, photography winning contestant, like, your own business. I'm talking to my daughter, one person in the world who acts like you. Were you being a bitch? Okay, I was. I'm like, there you go. So stop with the I was a kid and all the triangulation, gaslighting crap. You
Yeah.
feel bad about it because you knew a couple days later that you were being disrespectful to me. So stop with all the avoidant, crap. But this is how. But I have to talk to my kids like that because it's like you got to go in. You have to address it. Help them own their crap. But
Yeah.
oh.
Oh yeah, that reminds me of a circumstance I had too, where someone else did something wrong, and obviously it was wrong, and I believe I overreacted in the moment. So to be upset was appropriate. To be upset at that level, I thought was overkill. So later, for myself, I went to them and apologized for my overreaction. Never got an apology for what they did wrong. I'm like,
Right.
well, that's you. That's you. And you just identified what kind of person you are, and which is the kind of person who's not going to be in my life anymore. If you can't own your shit and say, well, hey, he opened the door to reconciliation, and I should take responsibility for it. Nope, they did nothing wrong as far as they're concerned, and my overreaction was the entire problem. Wow. Well, hey, thanks for letting me know who you are. I will now move on with my life. But okay, so back to the vision thing here too. So not only how did it go from had his head under his boot on the ground, pointing a gun at him, and signing over the house? Was that all kind of wrapped up into the same experience?
Yeah,
or?
and then Orly just had a need to like show them how wrong they've been. Like their heads were on spikes in the end.
And
Like it
then
was
how did they die? Or you just skipped that part and went straight to literal heads on spikes?
I don't know if if they did it themselves. I don't remember. There were so many different visions. In one vision, they did it themselves. In other visions, it was my youngest daughter. Other visions, it was the fire captain. It was just yeah, it was different people at different times. But
Okay,
the thing
that's
with
fine.
Orly,
Yeah.
my youngest, she had a need to see their heads on a stake. That's what was shown. And and the universe is a mirror, so maybe I had a need, or maybe that's my head on a stake because I didn't. I chose a father who had unresolved childhood trauma. Of course, I didn't understand at the time, and I chose their dad. So, is that me holding myself accountable? Is that my head on a stake because she, blamed me for her eating disorder and I went home and attempted
Yeah.
suicide? There's a lot that could be. And their stepmom, like she doesn't have kids, but super inner masculine, like
Mm.
super masculine, can't be wrong. Like, it's just, yeah, she's getting better, but
Now, but you can't see. Bubba's standing on his hind legs, stretched to his full length, sniffing the top of my second monitor like he's going to knock it over. You better not. Get down from there. Okay, he's down. All right, too many distractions. All right, so we got the sequence of... now, this is a little bit different. Too. Well, I get this experience as well with folks who... bring to me a dream, and because they are fascinated by their own experience, they've already spent a lot of time reflecting on it, and they've drawn out a lot of important factors. So what I try to offer is like my own analysis, which is probably going to duplicate some of the things that you've already thought of, and we've already discussed some of them. But then also hopefully add some additional layers to it, or things you hadn't considered, see it from a slightly different perspective. So you've got...
it's the direct opposite of June 25th.
Oh,
December.
my recording just stopped. I mean, I don't know how much. Let me do this. I started a new one. I'm gonna just play this back real quick just to find out how much we lost. I think the cats might have stepped on it at some
I love
point.
this.
Physically violent. That means...
We just had a need to
let me see here.
and their stepmom, like she doesn't have kids, but super inner masculine, like super
Wow, it
masculine,
goes
can't
back
be
to when you were talking
wrong, like,
about
it's
kids
just,
at a
yeah.
stepmom. So
She's
I think
getting
none
better,
of
but
what we talked about in the last few minutes got
you
can't
recorded.
see Bubba's standing on his
Oh,
hind
there's
legs,
I
stretched to
can.
his back when I was talking
Sniffing
back when I was
top
talking about
of my
Bubba
second monitor.
being standing on the
Like he's
monitor.
gonna
Everything
knock it
after
over. You
that
better
seems like
not.
it's just
Oh,
gone.
okay,
Get
okay.
down from there.
Okay, so
Wow,
He's down.
that's
let me go
terrible.
back to when I was
All right,
11.
too many
Okay, so when I was
distractions.
11, my dad met my stepmom, and then he started spending every night that we were there at her house. So he would leave us alone. So I got abandonment wounds. He would lie to me and tell me he was there. He would gaslight me. My brother was there. I don't know if my brother did stuff to me. I remember like locking my door where I would sleep in my dad's bed, and locking my brother out, but I don't have that many memories. But when I was 12, we moved back by that elementary school, and then my brother and I again were home alone at night.
Mm.
And it was a quarter mile from Jared's house.
So at the very least,
And I had,
wh-
oh,
oh, go ahead.
so, but like, in the fall, I had a lot of visions of him breaking into my house and coming to, you want to be the first one to have sex with me? Did he, to see me? Or, I had many, many visions, but I blocked where his house actually was and where my dad's house actually was until after Memorial Day this year.
Mm.
Only after Memorial Day this year was I finally ready to accept that his house was a quarter mile from my dad's house for a few years. If something
Mm.
happened, I don't know. My memory is abysmal. And then when I
Yeah,
saw him in
mine
high
too.
school, he kept wanting to talk to me and talk to me and talk to me, and I wouldn't even let him near me. And then, in the fall, I faced my fear of being sexually assaulted. And that day is my brother's soul was really pushing him to come see me, to talk to me. And it always felt like their souls were close. Um, and then the moment Jared's frustration peaked about like coming to see me, he's all pissed off about, I'm facing my wounds of, being sexually assaulted and stuff. And the electricity went out in Ventura where I live. Like, it was
Mm-hmm.
like, whoa, what the? And then my energy got stronger, and then I protected the girls and my shamanic gifts. I just was like on fire. But I released it through that experience, home alone, talking to souls, and this is how important like our thoughts are. Like, we don't acknowledge how important our thoughts are. Like, if I have a thought of In-N-Out burger, my mouth salivates whether food is present or
It's
not.
true. Yeah.
If I think of anxiety, highly anxious situations, depressed situations, my whole body responds as if I'm experiencing that anxiety and that depression in that moment.
Oh, for
And
sure.
so we have to really think of our thoughts. And I think the visions in the fall were potentially thoughts he had, because as a woman, I don't fantasize about a guy throwing me over his shoulder at school in front of everyone to go have sex with me in public because he won me or I'm his.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how a woman dreams of being claimed. You want to claim me? Then okay, let's have a wedding and a beautiful house and flowers, and you know what I mean? Like, let's dance in a field. Like, that's feminine imagination. Like, women aren't imagining a guy breaking into her house to be the first one to have sex and like forcing her into it. But
Mm-hmm.
those were all the visions I faced in the fall. So I really think that like facing like the first one that I described to you was the initial layer, setting me up to face it on my own
Mm-hmm.
fall. But this is how long it's taken me to process it. That was December I faced it. And then only Memorial Day, 5 months later, I'm finally able to accept like where he lived compared to where my dad lived.
Yeah. And what I was going to say a little bit earlier was the idea of, again, it almost, well, it matters, but in the context of this, it doesn't matter whether there was some negative experience there. It could have been nothing more than, here's the first real intense experience I have with a guy showing interest in me, and I'm pushing him away and didn't want to talk to him, didn't want anything to do with him. So at the very least, you were uncomfortable with the idea of being courted, or you were unsure of how to engage with the divine masculine as a woman. And go ahead.
No, when I was 14, the summer before high school, there was a guy who was like 5'6", and I dated him for a couple days.
Okay.
Let him kiss me.
So there was something
But
about this guy in particular, maybe.
okay. So what happened was, I remember him like staring at me, and then the most popular senior guy came up to me with Jared standing next to me being quiet, wanted to introduce me to Jared because Jared's so nice, right?
Mm.
I look at him like, are you punking me? Where's the camera? He is not nice. And I'm like, don't ever talk to me again. Like, I ran away. but a
Mm,
whole wall of fear came over me. Like I wouldn't even let him near me. And he's
gotcha.
AFC president. You know what I mean? Like that I was going against the grain, but that was like, this is my life. Like one of his friends came up to me one time. He's like, well, I don't like you. I'm like, you've never even talked to me. How do you know you don't like me? That's completely ridiculous. Fuck off. And but that was me.
Gotcha.
That guy's
Okay.
brother kissed me when I was 15 and like hold me down, and I pushed him off me like, you have a girlfriend, get off me. So I've been like battling the players my whole life,
For
but
sure.
I have
Yeah.
known that I'm replaceable,
Mm,
and
gotcha. Okay. So
does that
that's please tell me when I'm wrong. That's how we get there. So
yeah,
I'll say things like first experience. No, fair enough.
yeah,
Not first experience,
yeah,
but a different kind of experience, or at least he
yeah.
represented something to you which you felt overwhelmed by fear and had to reject and
Oh
run away
yeah.
from. And then later you were having visions of what if this person were to be more aggressive about it. So that's something our brains do too, as well as we look at situations where we're analyzing, okay, intense emotional reaction focuses our attention, and then we dwell on ideas and say, what if this, what if that, how would I feel about it? And you could have discovered about yourself that I do want to be thrown over the shoulder and put on display in public, shall we say. But you discovered, no, that is not appealing to me. And I think it's very rare that that's appealing to any women, even as a separate fantasy they never act on. But so that is, so even,
Relationship. Okay, yeah, fun. So, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
if I trusted him, but I can't talk to you, I won't let you talk to me. Like, no, no, no.
Yeah. And so there was something about you at the time that gave you a response, or that you experienced that response to whoever or whatever he was at the time. And you may have felt, you may have had a creepy vibe you couldn't explain. You may have had a I'm way too attracted, he's dangerous vibe, and instead it turned out push away. I don't want to deal with any of these feelings. There's a lot of reasons to be avoidant in that respect, as you would say. But for the dream, we were just basically starting with the first thing. So the teaching our lesson was related to being vocally argumentative, outspoken and argumentative, and that somehow that was going to be punished by. And the first thing that popped into my head, and you can tell me if this resonates at all, was the idea of Freud described the genital phase, where that you would either be anally retentive or anally expulsive. And that a lot had to do in his estimation, the way he came to those conclusions, explaining for the audience, is that it depends on how your parents responded to the fact that you shit your diaper as a baby. You do. And if you have really strong negative emotions around that, the say the mother, if a primary caregiver, made a big deal about just saying how disgusted she was and how nasty you were for doing this to her. Then you get the anal retentive. They don't want to let it go. They're going to hold it in because they don't want the punishment, the trauma or drama that comes with it. And then there's anal expulsive, where they're just shitting all over the place. They're a little too free with it. It's no boundaries type of thing of like poop with the diaper, poop on the floor, saying difference to me. It's the opposite ends of the spectrum of those two type of things. So the fact that it was violence to so where's the people who are what they call verbal diarrhea. That's kind of a typical like almost anal expulsive type of thing. It's like too much of a good thing in some ways. So there may be something to where that. Well, let me stop there and say, does that make a connection in your mind? Does that kind of make sense as to why maybe that symbology and why they were going to inflict that wound in that specific place?
So, yeah, I mean, because I wasn't aware that I had these wounds from Jared from my high school, from my childhood, I kind of more focused on my dad and my stepmom, and that was March before I had been, so before I fully accepted that Jared was so important in my life and impacted me so
Mm,
deep. And so, but sure. So I've always been very direct, as you see the way I respond to that guy. I'm very smart. I'm very fast. And I've of course taken a lot of shit in my life, but at certain moments I don't take any of your shit, and I'll do it freaking publicly. And I don't care. Like,
mm,
so you see the kind of could be verbal diarrhea in some points and my intuition is spot on, hence, my shamanic gifts. And then certain times I'm, anally retentive, like I'm holding back and not standing up for myself. So I think I could probably go both ways on that one, for
Sure.
sure.
Definitely,
For
or
sure.
one can lead to the other. If you have an excess, then boundaries get enforced later, and you have to deal with that learning process. It can be fun, right? Um, so anyway, that was the first thing that came to my mind. And the fact that it's taking place at the dad's house where the kids live, so it's not
Yeah.
taking place in a castle in medieval France. It's not taking place on the moon. It's
Oh,
not in your home. It's in their home. So there's a bit of a, well, that's where the kids live. So naturally, it's a place to set the
mhm.
environment
Yeah.
and the place where you would be the most worried about them because they're out of your care, and that's where they spend most of their time. That's where they
Yeah.
center their home base. Um, but the what was I going to say? The idea that they're coming to her bedroom as well. So that's even within the space of this is my home. Then there's this is my room in terms of
Mhm.
her. So they're bringing their judgment, their intent to do harm,
Yeah.
whatever it is. They're not bringing her out to do what. They're not coming to, again, counterfactuals. They're not coming to assault her in the backyard, in the garage.
No.
It's her room, her most intimate,
Yeah.
private space where she's. And bedrooms are. There's theories on dream interpretation which have validity as far as what you want to do with these things is be aware of all the different conceptual possibilities, and they're endless, so you can never get them all. But then also work within that to say, okay, which one of these seems to fit the best. And there is a theory that says, houses are always people or relationships. That's not happening. No phone calls. And they are very related to our, inner spaces, but also, the kitchen means something different than the living room, means
Yeah.
something different than the
The bedroom.
garage and the bedroom, especially. And the idea that they were coming from their bedroom, the master bedroom, and that it would pop, that the phrasing would come into your head that way as well, where you say, you didn't say, the just their room, but the idea of describing it as the master bedroom is because that's where the master of the house lives. So it's like their house, their rules, but they're coming to her private space. So there's definitely this imposition of we're going to impose upon you in some way, and this was conceived of as doing physical harm.
This totally makes sense
Yeah.
of you put it in relation of me, of my dad and my stepmom. When he would leave me to sleep in his bed and my brother at home alone at 11 and 12 to sleep at my stepmom's house, that's doing me harm.
Mm.
And that's coming from their bedroom, doing me hard in my bedroom. And then he'd come home in the morning and lie that he was there. And I would say, but I didn't see you, Dad, but I didn't see you. Oh, no, I was here. I was here. I just went to get donuts
Ha.
and gas me. And so then I didn't trust what I could see. But of course,
Mm-hmm.
I needed that. So I would lean on my intuition. But, and I have a significant visual processing disorder. Like my analytical skills are in the 96th percentile. But for balance, my ability to visually process, which is they show me a picture with lines through it to see if I can tell it's an ice cream cone or a truck or whatever, fourth percentile.
Mm.
But that shows the wound, that's how deeply I was wounded in my childhood, that I don't know what I'm talking about. Now, let's say, for instance, did I meet Jared when I was 5 and he was 7, and I didn't have emotional support from home, and I see him, my masculine, right? I'm 5, I'm innocent, it comes out, okay? And when I was shown that vision, like I was fighting teachers to get him to say it, and they were hitting me, and I was cursing at him, like I didn't give a fuck. Like I was 5 and like he was gonna say it, but I had to fight everyone, including
Mm.
the teachers, for him to say it in this vision that I was, shown.
Yeah.
So, and I always kind of wondered why my sensitive scalp went away at the same time as my lower back pain. My lower back pain started when I was 15, but I always had a sensitive scalp. So if I interacted with Jared when I was in kindergarten, because I left that school, my parents got divorced. I was there 1 year and then I left. And I didn't see him again at school, if I saw him there, until high school, even though we're in the same small town. Um, but maybe I saw him out like cheerleading and sports, and I probably saw him, but I don't remember. But it just
Hmm.
that all those pieces, how I wasn't safe in my room. I was left alone. They came from their room to do damage to me in my room. Leaving me alone is doing damage to me. And then the emotional abuse afterwards and the gaslighting afterwards, it just that makes a I
Yeah.
didn't think of it that way, but that is that how you're is that am I making sense of it right? In
Well,
a way, sense? Is that logical?
um, the what I like to say to folks is the answers are not in me. So I just ramble until some connection comes up with you, and that's what came up when
Yeah.
I approached something and gave it a description and threw it back to you. This is what came back. So I would just take it for what it is. Maybe it's
Yeah.
spot on. Maybe it's in the right ballpark. Maybe it's the best we can do with that for the moment. So it's not for me to say, no, that thought you just had based on your own experiences is wrong. Who the hell
Yeah,
am
but
I? I'm not in your head. You know, I'm not none of the answers aren't in me. I don't have any magic powers. I don't talk to spirits. Not directly. I don't hear voices. Let's say it that way. I think maybe there's some other forms of communication. What are we doing here? So the sequence of events can have meaning as well. They got as far as the threshold. They got as far as the barrier. They got as far as an unlocked barrier. Now it could have been she knew they were coming. Counterfactual again. She
yeah.
barricaded the door. It was locked. There was a dresser pushed up against it. They were really no. She was in her private, most intimate space and vulnerable. And the only barrier was a door that was very easily opened. It was like a
Yeah.
token privacy that doesn't really exist if you can just open it at any moment. So there's a vulnerability to that too. It's like she wasn't, you get, unless she could have gone out a window or something. It's also a place where there's nowhere to run, nowhere to hide as well. It's like, this is, you're at the mercy. And so in that moment, for whatever reason, the vision showed you, and it could be, you wanted an intervention, so you showed yourself that this was not going to happen, or something else showed you that was likely to be the outcome, that there would be some rescuing event that might happen. So there's a couple of different ways to look at that. Freud would say everything is wish fulfillment. I'm like, if you're really flexible by what a wish means, because a wish can be, I want this to happen, or I'm afraid this might happen. Well, that motivates just about everything in life. I want good things. I want to avoid bad things. So he's not wrong. It was just a bit overgeneralized, but it can also be idle speculation. It can also be, I don't know how I feel about it. It could be to decide, what do I wish? I think that's a layer he missed that Jung and others after him carried on with. But anyway, a lot of his flaws were in the fact that he was a little too leaned into the medical side of things. He was looking for a physical cause for everything, and even psychological stuff. A little too rigid in some ways. But what do you expect for an Austrian on coke? It's just how it is. You're gonna be a little rigid.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, I'm
Or a
Swiss German,
Viennese,
like
wherever he
Carl
was from.
Jung. I resonate with Jung because I'm
Oh,
Swiss
me
German.
too. Me too. I feel a little more like I give Freud his grudging respect. Like, he really broke the ground.
Yeah.
But Jung kind of picked the ball and ran it for the touchdown, I think. So he
You know,
couldn't have done it without Freud's foundation.
yeah.
But Freud wasn't going to hit the touchdown without help either. So, and then we've gone farther from that as well. But and the fact that they were able to breach the barrier, but the intervention occurred before they could because it could have been like she was harmed and then they were punished afterwards. No, this was a preventative scenario.
Yeah.
And you've placed authority figures, those with the iconic of the ability and desire to be protective, to do good, police that stop criminals, firemen that save people from fires, etc. They were already outside the house. They were aware that something was likely to occur and poised to intervene. And that's interesting too. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that idea of having a vision where you've placed rescue within reach and then it is enacted prior to harm. I don't know if that brings any.
No, I mean, what I was seeing when you were talking is that she had the ability to protect herself and she had planned ahead. Now,
I forgot that part too. Because she'd been harmed before, so she had a weapon. Do you remember what it was? What
A gun.
or it was a gun. So it was they had a razor blade and she had a gun. Her self-defense was going to be a lot more effective than their
Yeah.
attempted harm. And so it is
And so
interesting as go ahead.
one of the things, so I had a fear that their dad would get to them, but I also was the one taking all my kids to Taekwondo, rock
Mm,
climbing. I made sure my son got into Boy Scouts. And so Jared, from the guy, my original hero from high school, he wore his Boy Scout uniform one day. He was Mormon, conservative, Boy Scout. And I knew then that he's conservative. And I had no clue how to be conservative. My mom was an alcoholic. I was busy protecting myself at home. And I had a job at Hot Dog and a Stick for 6 years at 14.
mm,
So, and I was an affluent town in Southern California, like 15 minutes from the Bachelor Mansion, kind of affluent town, right?
gotcha.
So, the show The Bachelor,
Yeah.
yeah, so I prepared them. I prepared them and she was prepared. I was prepared. And then so it was okay. I was prepared and
Gotcha.
yeah.
So
So
that
then,
is so
but
in your
because all that preparation, showed me that everyone's safe. Like all of the preparation came out in the dream that prepared for the police to be outside and for Jim to be outside and for Orly to have a gun and that, because all of it is showing me myself, right? It's all a reflection of me. And so, yeah,
yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. And this is where I get into things like, so you've had time to process this already in I only get this sweat. Oh, it's driving me nuts.
I'm sweating too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I'm broad.
I guess I feel like I put on the fans. It's still not much warmer than it was before. Okay, so all of that to say that you hit the nail on the head of what I would suggest or try to coax out of someone or hope for them to say is that. So in the dream, you're showing like what you provided for them was not a police. You didn't pay a police officer to park outside the house to protect them. What you did was you gave them the effective means of protecting themselves. And that's exactly what you were saying, is that you worked very hard to make them strong and capable so that they could defend themselves or avoid bad situations. And so the analogy is to, well, she had a gun under the pillow, even in her, if someone got that close to her, she could still affect it, but also situationally, that she would put herself in situations where help was not too far away, that there would be some recourse to intervention. So you nailed it. That's exactly what I would have given you as feedback. Yeah. So I think we got that one. Asked a bunch of questions, clarified that to myself. So, and it was interesting that it was this fire captain that went in and not the police officer. The police officer was not a particular person, just a generic cop or.
Yeah, no, it was just a cop. Was it that? That's it. I don't remember because when I go back, then things get added. The cop may have gotten added, but I don't remember for sure.
Fair enough. Well, we can leave that loose.
Now there's more. Oh, okay.
I know. Another thing Freud said was the beware the risk of secondary elaboration. As you tell the story, you start having new elements that seem like they were there originally. But if they're very hazy, it's better to say, I don't know for sure. That's now that I think about it, I'm not sure, but it's what is it? Even secondary elaboration, even additional ideas and that's one thing Jung grabbed as well. Freud a little too with the idea of free associations. We're free associating as we're talking about these subjects as well. So you say there was a fire engine there. And now that I think about it, a cop car as well. Now, maybe the cop car wasn't there or not, but they're both in the same class of, say, societal protector rescue personnel type of thing. Now, but I'd say the more interesting part is that, it is and it isn't, because there's an easy explanation why you met this guy and he showed up in your dream because he's iconic of this type of person. But it's not often that firemen come to rescue someone who's in physical danger of an assault. That's a police job. So you've actually got someone it's not actually his job, even if he's in the same sphere. And you believe that he's the type of man who would act, but it's still, it's almost like a cop showing up to put out a house fire. It's not quite lined up.
That's why he's 6'7", fire captain, East LA. Like that was the whole that he with, because I remember one day I saw him outside of his truck and I could say, oh, no one messes with that guy. Like,
Mm.
you're a fire captain, you got to be able to take control of a scene in the way you need to take control of a scene. Like, and fire's above police.
Oh,
So
sure. Yeah.
so I think that the reason I pulled on him is because I trusted, I had emotions for him. We had this established connection, and I was putting out wife energy, and then he was still entertaining that. So it was that kind of dynamic.
So
I
at
think
that
that's what,
time, it would make sense to
yeah, like,
insert him into
so,
the dream as, okay, well, what if he was the
yeah,
guy who was able to provide this level of protection for my kids, which is a very natural thing. That's where women spend a lot of time. So talking about men and women's
yeah,
differences, um, women spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to keep their kids alive because that's what they have to do. Like women are, without getting too like reductive about it and minimizing anything, women are the absolutely physically, biologically, and psychologically composed to make sure that infant
yeah,
makes it to toddler status and is
yes,
able to start talking and learning things. And that's
yeah,
why it kind of, and then it's hard to break out of that because your job is to keep them alive so they don't get too injured. And a
mhm,
father's job then is to say, we got to let them get a little injured because that's how they grow.
yeah,
With
that's
the
how we
scars and
learn.
the calluses, they got to fall down and scrape their knee.
Yeah,
They're going to live. I don't want them to be injured enough to die, but we got to get out. We got to keep them alive. Also, you can't
yeah,
you can't have a new human without both. It's very definitely.
right,
So they can also be iconic of bringing in that masculine energy of continued personal growth in a way,
mhm,
but in a
yeah,
safe, in a protected, managed way. Um, and the idea of the resolution as well. So now we've got his um, specific kinds of actions that he takes, and not he's coming in with a gun, so he's definitely more than just he's not a fireman at that time. He's something else, a little bit beyond that, but also at the same time. Um, but that he would go so far as to like really punish them. I mean, this wasn't just crisis averted, everyone back to your corners,
yeah,
reset the status quo. This was Punisher level ending the threat. Like the threat continues as long as they're still alive. So we're going to make sure they're not alive.
yeah,
But before that, there was there's a bit of a catharsis when you see the villain get what they deserve in a way. So having the villain in this story humiliated, taken from I'm going to victimize someone who can't fight back as effective. Now he didn't know she could. He didn't know she had a gun. She never had a chance to use it apparently. So, but the idea in someone's head that they would inflict that upon the innocent, and then to have that reversed, and now the bully is getting his ass beat. That has a very very satisfying thing to it, and then there's that visual image of what is one of the most demeaning things you can do to someone in a way, but also the behavior, the most iconic of someone being totally defeated. You get the boot on their face. They're on the ground and you're stepping on their head. Like anyone who's able to fight back is not going to let that happen. So you've just completely dominated them. And the gun is part of it as well. It was never used as far as but it's a threat. It's a present threat of I can use more force if I need to. So there's
yeah.
that additional layer as well. Getting a dry mouth here. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, so my dad used to complain about paying child support to my mom in front of me before I was 10 years old.
Oh yeah.
I internalized that I don't deserve to be provided for by a man. And
Mm,
that is me standing up for myself saying, you will provide. I mean, the kids they still have that struggle with their dad. And, I won't
mm.
get into it, but they have, two homes and, why
That's
is all
tough.
their
Yeah.
daughter paying for her college when they have two homes in Southern California? Like, you
Yep.
know, but that's their dynamic to work out where, my daughter's learning self-belief and she's doing incredible, but it's and why is a father pushing a daughter, you need a degree? What if? Why is he like, what if this man who loves you unconditionally, you're always and forever, doesn't have a plan to take care of you? Like the whole teaching women to what if and make their own plan B. just destroys relationships. But, he has still a lot to heal. So it's yeah, no, that's really, and then so in the summer of 2023 on my birthday. A lot
Hmm.
of things happen on my birthday.
Interesting
Uh,
coincidence. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, I had great news today about my film adaptation, and this amazing literary agent that's excited, loves my book, and is like, okay, let me clear some people off my schedule so I can work with you. I'm like, okay, it's a great day. But in 2023, my dad has a condo on a lake that in the town where I was raised, and so we were out on a boat. And my stepmom, who was a marriage and family therapist, says, well, my sister was just born stupid.
Hmm.
And of course, she knows what I do. And I'm like, well, why, what do you mean? Why? And so I start questioning her to help to hold the mirror up because I knew she was to talk about, well, she makes dumb decisions. I'm like, okay, but why is she making that? And why isn't she making a good financial decision? Why is she doing that? Back to her childhood because my stepmom didn't want to admit that she had a traumatic childhood.
Hmm.
She's a marriage and family therapist who married my father. Okay, meaning we attract each other based on our wounds. Like the guy with the dominatrix stomping around, equal amount of wounds to me. So he messed up, she messed up. But she tried to triangulate and get him to attack me and like how I'm wrong. So long story short, she wanted me to give her an unconditional apology with no conversation. I'm 53 years old. I'm like,
Huh.
this is the crap. Can you imagine why I wanted her head on a stake? Here
Hmm.
we go. It's like, and then after that, I just went off. I'm like, you've been projecting your self hate on me for 40 years. And I'm done. I'm like, I understand what it takes to be the mother of the household, that I'm the emotional center. Mental health is created inside of healthy emotional intimacy, and all the people in this family are mentally unstable.
Hmm.
And you're the center. How are you taking responsibility for that? Then they saw that my YouTube channel, I in a couple of videos, I discussed my suicide attempt and some challenges like the financial thing. So, with my dad, he texted me, we're not going to talk to you for 3 months because of what you said on YouTube.
Hmm.
Oh, so you won't talk to me. So I go someplace else to talk. So I'm getting punished for talking the anal, don't talk, Carrie.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to talk. And I'm like, when are my emotions going to be important? And about a month later, my dad reached out to LinkedIn. I think he forgot, like he's in his early 80s,
Hmm.
and was like, "Oh, happy birthday!" I think he said something nice. Oh, I love you, Dad. And I just reacted really nicely to him. So like that was our last interaction, and I haven't talked to him since. So that was, 9 months before this division that we're discussing happened. That happened 9 months before.
Gotcha. Yeah, and all this stuff is related, and that's I think that's one of the major benefits of having these discussions, because the dream is, we're trying to solve a mystery. Why this vision in this form? Whether it's a dream or a daydream, etc. But also, it's what do we discover? Maybe the real dream interpretation or the friends we made along the way. Okay, all the little tangents we go into about. That makes me think of this. And, if I reflect on this part of my life and then I get a clearer understanding, and maybe that's a piece of the puzzle. And, I think of dream analysis or whatever as, it's not, as I said before, me giving you an answer. The answers aren't in me, but we're putting together a puzzle. Like, is that a corner piece? Do you think it's top left or bottom right? Or, does that look like a waterfall? It looks like part of a waterfall. Okay, what if we put it here? And then now we got a waterfall. Well, there's a cliff. What if we move the waterfall closer to the cliff? Because we know it's going to be coming off the cliff because the other side is the ocean. So you start putting these things together, but it's getting the shape of those pieces and seeing how they fit together. I love that. I love that part. I think that's why this all becomes a therapeutic experience. Even if this is not counseling and therapy, I do not charge for
No,
this
it's
service.
so cool. It's a heart opener.
But it should be
Open
therapeutic,
our
small
hearts
t. Yeah,
ourselves. That's the healing. When we
absolutely.
as like Carl Jung, gotta love Carl Jung. Wholeness is not created by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by the integration of the contraries. And
Oh
that's
yeah,
what we're
definitely.
opening very integrated in the contraries. Like this whole thing, like Andrew Tate and my soul have our soul's purpose of that. We have a soul contract to address sexual assault, and here's how. So triggers are our healing friend, not our healing foe.
Mm-hmm.
But he triggers men and women with fear of men and fear of being sexually assaulted to the surface. And my book comes along and gives them the tools to heal those wounds because I've done it. And I've done it with Andrew Tate, like, with him being in my life. And so, and that's one way our souls are working in lockstep. But most women specifically don't understand that when the person's triggered, though it's emotional pain inside the person who is triggered, the person doing the triggering is not at fault.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's two sides to that. One is that someone could discover your triggers and use them against you maliciously. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about people just being themselves, living their life, doing their thing, and then you have a particular response to them. At that point, you got to say, okay, whether they meant it or not, I'm dealing with this thing now. And I came across the things that I love quotes, and sometimes I can remember them, but triggers. Something about triggers being as you were saying, there's something for you to use to heal yourself, not a weapon to be used against others to control them. It's right. And I think that's where it gets into a dysfunctional thing. It's like, oh, I don't like that, therefore you have to stop. Nah, that's not how this works.
Like the whole pronoun police, the microaggression police, I need a safe space. Like if you're a grown-ass adult and you can't hear an opposing position, you are not a grown-ass adult. Go home and grow the.
And well, that's the difference between the internal and external locus of control. Is a lot of people with anxiety conditions and other things of that externalize it as like, I'm not safe unless I can control everyone around me. When the internal locus is, I'm safe because of what I do protect and control myself. And then sometimes that goes to there's a little bit of a problem with that too. Is like you go too far into self-control is like everything's my fault. I am insufficiently in control, therefore eating disorders, self-harm, other stuff that comes along with that. I need to punish myself or control myself. It's a very rigid thing. I eat as much as I want and I throw up as much as I need to, and that's in my control. Therefore they like I said, it goes too far the other way. It's amazing how human beings out of balance. It's not healthy. What a concept. So apart from the boot to the head, which is, if you don't know that song, "Boot to the Head's" fantastic, by some Canadian guys out of the '90s. One of the next phases between, so there was interrupting the planned assault, an assertion of dominance and a clear visual depiction. Then there's also the signing of the house over to the kids before they are permanently dealt with, and a display is made of that warning to others or message to the intended recipient of harm that the problem has been dealt with. The evil has been put in its proper place, which is heads on pikes. But so there's, what is it? What is the, running out of words today. What does it mean to sign over the house? It's like, it's a provision of resources. You were talking earlier about, the idea of being a kid and having it discussed in front of you, this child support issue. It's like, there's some things that kids just don't need to hear because it's not healthy for them. They can't do anything about it. They can't even process the idea. It just sticks with them and hurts them. So there's this official, what is it? An iconic representation of resource provision, which is signing over the house, a place to live, shelter in that sense. So I'll just stop there for a second. If you got feedback on it.
I put my boot on my dad's head and took the money because I stood up for myself.
Yeah, money isn't always money. It's not always resources.
I deserve, to be provided for, and I'm going to make it safe for myself. So, okay, you guys are gone. And, I put their stake when I went, I'm gnarly. I have to be, if I, take on Andrew Tate in the fire department and then the FBI, like the FBI, he's like Air Force Academy, MBA, interrogation specialist, global terrorism, like 20 different specialties in the FBI. And I'll tell you when it's not recorded. Or actually, I'll just tell you when it's not recorded. Where
That's
he
easier.
worked. Yeah,
Then I
I'll
have to
do
do
it.
less editing.
Yeah, I'll do it when,
That's fine.
but,
Yeah.
you know, um, it's like scary guy, and I see a picture of him now. He's in perfect shape, but all these guys stay in perfect shape. Why? Because they get another room with other guys at that level. Like men know, like the way a man walks, how he carries himself. Can he deal with weapons? Is he a martial artist? Can he fight? Men know. So you come prepared so you don't have to fight.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and also there's a rising tide lifts all boats type of situation. In a way, that's the first thing that came to my mind. But the idea that if you join a group with other people and they're like far above you, it's like you either get out or you catch up. Like I don't
Yeah.
think most people stay in a situation where they're not equal to their
Yeah.
where they don't become a peer if they aren't already. So yeah, there's a lot of what is it? It's the team mentality of like you're not just getting better so that you're our equal. It's because you want to equally pull your weight. So
Yeah.
you don't want to be the weak one, the weak
Especially with
link.
men.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then having this end of it, and the idea that you mentioned that maybe you in your mind you wanted to have your daughter see that this problem was resolved, see the heads on the pikes
Yeah.
as this very visceral, again, iconic representation of problem solved, evil
Yeah.
punished type of thing too. So you've got a whole thing of it goes all over the place. It's your relationship with your dad and stepmom, your relationship with your ex-husband as he's caring for the kids, and your relationship with your kids and what you want to impart to them, lessons from your life of here's bad situations that happened to me that that you should know about to avoid, and here's the tools I'm going to give you so you can avoid them most effectively. You got all of this going on in this vision. And then did you come, so to kind of button it up, did you come away from it with just a better understanding or with a path forward laid out for you in terms of like, here's how I'm going to approach some problems? You said it was part of your enlightenment journey.
Oh,
So
yeah. I mean, that was just one of many visions I was shown that it took me about. So, because, women to get into our emotions and out of our emotions, it takes a lot longer, right? And it's hormonal,
there's also this weird phenomenon where apparently women feel better after they cry. That's not a
Yeah.
male. It's not a male thing. Like men just can't have a good cry and then put it behind them. It's like it doesn't work that way for us. Yeah.
Well, interesting because we release cortisol when we cry. And so it's like this is truth, and we're releasing cortisol, so it's helping balance our nervous system, which it would do the same for men. But men, your tear glands are 60% larger than ours, so you could create tears and not know it, and that's how you release cortisol, but you don't show it.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
so
Well, I guess a part of this I'm drawing from was the experience of a trans person who said, they were going from female to male, and that once they got on testosterone over a certain period of time, they could no longer have the catharsis of letting go, releasing an emotion by crying. They had a harder time getting tears started, and crying did not relieve the stress in the same way it used to. So there's some biological difference going on there. But
I mean, also,
anecdotal maybe.
it's always a feminine body. Just because you
It's
get
true.
testosterone, so you're just messing it up. So of course it's not working right. But
Yep.
yeah. But no,
Anyway,
that was
anecdotal. But
my lower back. I gotta get out of this chair. We've been
no,
here 3 hours.
that's fine. Yeah, I see you
But it's
moving around there.
amazing. Very helpful.
Well,
Very,
thank you very much. No, we got to the end of the dream or vision, and that's all we try to do. So, and I usually ask, did it do any good? And you're saying, yeah,
Very
helpful. That is wonderful. Well, let's button it up here. We'll call it a day. Let's see the outro. This has been our friend Carrie Blazer out of Ventura, California. She is a mother, shaman, master of East Asian studies, a trauma to enlightenment coach, and recently the published author of My Inner Heroine, Exploring Feminine Pain, which you can find, of course, through carrieblazer.com, link in the description below. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Always need more volunteer dreamers. I do video game streams Monday through Friday, most days of the week, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. This episode brought to you by whatever book I forgot. I'm going to put it over here. check it out. It's probably awesome. All my books are awesome. And also, if you'd go to, of course, you can find all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including MP3s of this very podcast. And if you'd head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, that's where I'm trying to build a community. I'd love to have you. And great way to reach out to me. So the only thing to say is, Carrie, thank you for being here. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you.
And everybody out there, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.